Chu Xing could not why his friend killed him so mercilessly and vilely in a past life. And so Chu Xing has a new goal of taking revenge on this scumbag in his new life. So he started creating new pills for himself, using a new magic cauldron. At this time, the Chu family community of elders gathered outside the cities and discussed Chu Xing's cooperation with the
Yo,
treasure
no
pavilion.
pause on
One of
this.
the elders wanted to spread false information among people about the city's fundraising for Chu Xing's own needs, but did
We'll
not
do this.
expect that Chu Xing would invest all the money earned from spiritual herbs into the treasury. And another elder was infuriated that they were all driven out of the Chu family by some garbage, and now they were left without support. He proposed the most radical method of reprisal against Chu Xin, but the other elder was afraid of the wrath of the treasure pavilion, which would take revenge if Chu Xing died. But the first elder didn't think so, because he hoped that there was only a business deal between the pavilion and Chu Xing, and there should be no personal relationships involved. Therefore, he proposed to destroy Chu Xing and bring greater benefits to the treasure pavilion himself with the help of spiritual herbs. But the second elder was worried that Chu Xing had been gone for several days. But for Chu Ping, this was an excellent chance to attack. The next day, Chu Xing made 3 poisonous needles from the pearl, which can literally kill from touch. After successful work, he decided to do a warm-up, but noticed someone through the slightly open door. It was his wife Liu Xiang, who sat on a stone and admired the sun and was incredibly beautiful. Chu Xing decided to come out to her at this time, because he had already been training for several days, so Miss Liu Xiang was very happy about his return. Motivation, kind of cold key appeared in her, which dispelled all spiritual energy. Chu Xing took her hand and scanned the energy in her body, but did not notice any cold key energy. Chu Xing guessed that ice key was manifested during the tracing of martial spirit, which meant that Sister Liu Xiang had high strength. Chu Xing said that Liu Xiang should train more as her body is now too weak for such energy. During their conversation, Xiao Hu burst into the yard, who was ready to punch the face of Chu Xing, who had not gone anywhere for 3 days in a friendly manner. He had very important news about Mount Fen, where the Chu family mine collapsed and fire ore was found under the rubble. Chu Xing asked about the wounded and dead, but it turned out that there were none. Then Chu Xing said that they needed to start excavations themselves. But Xiao Hu was indignant, because it was impossible to enter there because there was fog there, destroying spiritual energy, and immediately asked about the sweet smell that was present there. Xiao Hu was seriously surprised how the young master found out about this, but it didn't matter, because now Chu Xing decided to check everything himself. At the entrance to the cave, Chu Xing posted a guard and ordered them not to let anyone in. Chu Xing entered the cave with Xiao Hu, and then Chu Xing realized that the flame heart fruit was definitely located here. Chu Xing gave Xiao Hu heart purification pills and asked her to eat them. He said they would stabilize spiritual qi. After a couple of minutes of walking, they reached some kind of magical tree with the same fruits. Xiao Hu got too close to him and began to feel a strong suppressive energy emanating from him, and he felt sick from it. Chu Xing helped Xiao Hu get out, and he came to his senses and did not understand what was happening. But the fact was that the tree was emitting the same fog that suppressed spiritual energy. This looked quite creepy to Xiao Hu, and now he understood that the precious spiritual stones would now remain on this tree forever. But Chu Xing did not worry about this because when the fruits ripen, the fog will clear. Chu Xing said that such a fruit would help a cultivator at the body tempering stage break through to the next level. Xiao Hu was simply shocked and came up with a plan to eat all the fruits. But Chu Xing upset him and said that this effect only works once. Moreover, according to Chu Xing, these fruits still need 10 years to ripen, otherwise there will be no effect. While Xiao Hu was furious, Chu Xing took out a light purple tree, but Xiao Hu did not understand why he needed it. The light purple tree belonged to the yin wood element, and the fiery heart fruit belonged to the yang fire element, and therefore yin and yang created harmony. Xiao Hu was shocked how Chu Xing found out about this, because he never knew that Chu Xing had once practiced sorcery. Simply put, Chu Xing was confident that with this method he would speed up the maturation of plants. The fog should clear in a month, and at that time the fruits will ripen, and Xiao Hu had already noticed how the fog had begun to recede a little. Xiao Hu was incredibly happy about this, and Chu Xing asked him to stop flying in the clouds and follow him. But suddenly at the exit, they heard some sounds of battle and a very strong and nasty smell. On the street, there were Chuxing soldiers who were already suffocating from some strange purple fog. Suddenly, an old man came out to them.
I'm
and
here.
Xiao Hu noticed
Mouse is
poisonous
up
spots
here
on
and
his
I got
face
shit
and
slayed
realized
up.
that it was
I gotta
poisonous
find a
yang.
better house,
He was
bro.
about to go into the cave and decided not to touch the young guys and ordered them to get out of here. But Chuxing stopped him. Poisonous Yang heard him and turned in his direction with displeasure. Chuxing firmly said that this is his cave,
Alright, well,
which belongs to the Chu
because shit ain't going well,
Poisonous
I
Yang
am
didn't
going
care. He knew
to
that
clear
there was
these
a
out.
fiery
I
heart
dropped
fruit
the
here,
generator
and he
back
was
there.
ready to destroy anyone
But I
in
got a
his way.
base that I
Xiao
can't even
Hu
get
was
it,
very
so I gotta
upset
get
because he
wood
thought
planks,
that they
nails. I
only
got
work in vain.
axes
But
galore up
Chuxing
there,
did not
so
think
I ain't
so
worried
and
about
rushed to
that.
attack. Poisonous Yang
I'm gonna have
was
to
a
get
little
to
stunned, but decided to fight back powerfully with his poisonous fog. Xiao Hu was very scared because this was the spirit power connecting the 9 heavens, and it was extremely dangerous for Chuxing. Poison Yang didn't see Chuxing and thought that this weakling died from one attack. But then Ian noticed some very powerful surge of energy from the fog, and was surprised how a person could have such powers after being hit by illusory poisonous smoke. Chuxing came out of the poisonous smoke and said that this smoke interacts with the
Look at
blood,
that metro.
but at the moment Chuxing had it sealed with his pills. Poisonous Yang was surprised by Chuxing's skill, but Yang did not want to forgive him for insulting him.
There's a
He
waterway
released
over there.
spirit decomposition powder at Chuxing, but Chuxing stood as if nothing had happened and sprayed it all over his body without receiving damage. For Chuxing, the fight against this poison was easier since it was only necessary to use spiritual energy. Chuxing had heard before that Poisonous Yang's martial art was comparable to the Celestial Empire, but now Chuxing didn't think so, and even gave advice to use gloomy blood poison, so that there was the slightest chance of victory. Poisonous Yang was beside himself with anger. He didn't expect such a young master to be so strong. Poisonous Yang, not wanting to risk his health, decided to simply leave, but promised to return. Xiao Hu himself breathed a sigh of relief, because he already thought that the end would come for them. Xiao Hu immediately approached Chuxing and asked how he became so strong in such a short period of time. But Chuxing only said that the Poisonous Yang did not use spiritual energy, and only thanks to this he defeated him. And the Poisonous Yang at that time was talking about Chuxing, who smelled very strongly of the poison of gloomy blood. But he fought as if nothing had happened. He implied that for the sake of cultivation, he had absorbed the poison, and was now using all his strength not to die. Xiao Hu was afraid that Poisonous Yang might come back to take revenge for this incident, but Chuxing asked him not to worry. But Chuxing knew that he used the dark blood poison against him. And now, if he himself did not return for salvation, he would simply die. Xiao Hu asked about the guys who suffered from his poison, and asked if Chuxing had an antidote. But Chuxing was already doing this and neutralizing the illusory poison in the body of the guards, who were very grateful to the master for saving him. He asked the guards to keep today's meeting with the Poisonous Yang a secret. Chuxing was very pleased with everyone and trusted them, so they just went home from this mountain. But the Poisonous Yang still could not calm down, and did not understand how Chuxing knew about the dark poison, and did not know whether Chuxing really had a cure for it. At an evening dinner, Chuxing asked Xiao Hu and Liu Xiang to
I don't
leave
have.
for a while, as he was going to receive a couple of important guests. Chuxing asked the already a little scared Miss Liu Xiang not to worry, that she would definitely pick them up when everything was over. One of the elders learned about the fiery heart fruit, and was very upset that he did not receive it himself, because he thought that he would benefit from it more than Chuxing. Another elder agreed with him, because if they were delayed, he would get a lot of spiritual stones. They were confident in their success, and already imagined how all this wealth would pass into their hands. But Chu Ping was wiser than all of them and understood that they needed to be more careful. He knew that Chuxing had taken all his tenants to another place, and was left alone, and was now clearly planning something. Then the other elders also thought about it, and now it seemed really suspicious to them. But the 3 elders could not calm down. They were already furious because they were sitting here and hiding, and because of brother Chu Hai, who died at the hands of Chuxing. The 3 elders decided to agree with the first, and the first plan was proposed to launch the first strike against Chuxing. The people who remained on their side agreed with the radical measures, but Chu Ping did not answer anything. Suddenly, a man appeared who ridiculed their situation, that because of an ordinary boy, they began to hide and be afraid of everything. He said that he could calmly destroy Chuxing with his fighting spirit. With these words, he raised Chu Ping's motivation, and he proposed to act that night. Chu Xing at that moment looked at the stars and remembered the song of some old friend from a past life, in which he learned about the dark poison. He was one of the 10 emperors and possessed rare chameleon blood, and therefore gave him a book about the poison of the sacred imperial scripture. Then he read the entire book and learned everything about the poison of heaven, the knowledge of which was now very useful to him. Chu Xing sat and drank some kind of tincture and just waited for guests. Suddenly he heard the rustling of leaves and realized that the same poisonous Yang had come to him. Chu Xing mockingly asked what brought him to such a late hour, but Yang knew that Chu Xing knew the answer to the solution to his problem and was just teasing him now. Yang immediately asked for his method of dispersing the gloomy blood poison, and in return he promised to give the fruits of the Shifen cave. But this proposal seemed simply ridiculous to Chu Xing. These fruits already belong to his family, especially since Yang will soon die from poison, so it makes no sense for him to offer what Chu Xing will definitely receive. But Ian was also not easy and did not want to beg anyone. And during this time, he simply decided to make sure that the city would forget about one person. But Chu Xing suggested that he try to fight, because this would only speed up the spread of poison throughout the body. Chu Xing implied that after poisoning one person, he himself would die. Yang could not accept this, but he had to agree to protect the Chu family for 3 years, and during this time, Chu Xing must help him. Chu Xing said that 3 years was too short, and only agreed to Yang's complete subordination to Chu Xing throughout his life. But after these words, Yang was furious, because he could not imagine how great Yang could worship the small Chu family all his life. Chu Xing has already said everything, and suggested that since he does not agree, then let him prepare a coffin for himself while he still can. Chu Xing did not want to say goodbye to him, because he was too riddled with poison, but Yang stood rooted to the spot, because he had never seen such arrogant masters before. But suddenly he noticed the killers who were walking towards Chu Xing's house, and offered to dispel the gloomy blood poison in exchange for protection. But Chu Xing, having seen 2 expert soul collectors, decided that Chu Ping was overestimating Chu Xing's strength. Chu Xing heard him say something to him, but in response, Chu Xing only laughed at his abilities. 2 elders who would have ordered this expert to destroy Chu Xing in a mask. He attacked Chu Xing with lightning speed, but Chu Xing managed to dodge the blow. And with just one sharp throw of a poisonous needle, Chu Xing was able to hit him right in the head. And he was able to catch the sharp and unexpected attack of the 2 elders with his palms, while the expert was lying around and suffering from the poison of the needle. Chu Xing kicked one elder and threw a second needle at him, which hit him in the arm. 3. The elder felt funny that Chu Xing tried to injure him with an ordinary needle,
open window.
but after a couple of seconds, he fell to the ground.
Grab soap.
Poisonous Yang didn't even have time to blink before those 2 had already turned into a black substance. He asked Ian, who had been hiding in the bushes all this time, to repeat his words. Yang could not answer anything and was very dissatisfied, but Chu Xing suggested that he leave since he was not ready for anything. Then Ian decided to agree to serve as his servant for the rest of his life, because now he understood that he was not an ordinary person. But Chu Xing decided to get really impudent and changed his mind and wanted to make the poisonous Yang his slave. Poisonous Yang went berserk and couldn't believe Chu Xing's words that he just wanted to take advantage of him and make him his servant. But Chu Xing decided to remember his past and said that if the strongest cultivator Yang Yang had knelt before him, Chu Xing would not have accepted him. Yang did not understand who Chu Xing really was and understood that now he would not be able to defeat him. But suddenly Chu Xing gave Yang 3 seconds to make such an important decision for him. In great anger, Yang nevertheless agreed and knelt down, and Chu Xing said that in the future he would understand that he made the right choice. After that, Chu Xing gave him a book containing the dispelling of gloomy blood poison and asked him to study it well. Yang was surprised at how high the rank of this spirit of dispelling dark poison was. He now honestly and without any problems bowed down to Chu Xing and thanked him for such a gift. After 4 nights, some 2 individuals sent by Chu Ping arrived at Chu Ping's estate and could not understand where the second elder had disappeared. In front of Chu Ping, who began to treat them with distrust, they could not say anything. People had already started arguing with each other. Some thought that the second elder had run away, and some denied it. Some resorted to a very stupid solution, such as breaking into the city and capturing Chu Xing. But all these disputes were abruptly ended by Chu Ping. Chu Ping, who was already very angry, said that the second elder and his assistant had already been killed. The third elder had to agree with him, since recently spies checked the city of Chu and there were no experts there. Then very exciting thoughts entered the head of the third elder, because his cultivation was at the level of the second elder, who was simply finished off there. He asked Chu Ping, who was already in despair, what should they do next? Chu Ping decided to resort to the latter method and focus on the tribal spiritual stone deposits. A few days later, Chu Xing was training with Poisonous Yang, who had recently become his servant. Chu Xing tried to strike one of the blows on Yang's body, but he dodged without much difficulty. But Chu Xing immediately retaliated with a roundhouse kick, which gave Yang a concussion. Chu Xing was very exhausted, but did not want to show it, and said that Yang had lost. But it was not easy for Chu Xing because Yang broke the rules and did not suppress his cultivation to his level. But Yang replied that his thunder and lightning technique was too strong and he could not block it with a weaker cultivation. Yang was surprised at how much Master Chu Xing had progressed, because now he had to fight at full strength. Yang also added that Chu Xing could easily fight a person with a rank 8 body tempering level.
I am not trying
although
to
Chu Xing only had a rank 6 body tempering level. At this time, Xiao Hu and Liu Xiang came out into the street, brought fruits and offered the guys a break, and Xiao Hu also made sure that no one knew about Yang. Chu Xing again decided to ask Miss Liu Xiang about cultivating fighting spirit, and Yang constantly laughed at how he pestered his wife with these questions every day. But Miss Liu Xiang still couldn't do anything, and it was already too strange, because Miss Xiang's body was in excellent condition. But Liu Xiang was not confused and said that cultivation is not important to her as long as she is next to Chu Xing. A month later, a satisfied Chu Xing and Xiao Hu, together with Yang, who did not understand where the fog had gone, went into the cave for fiery fruits. But when Ian saw that the fruits were ripe, he was simply in shock and did not understand how this was possible. Chu Xing told Yang about his secret method, thanks to which the fruits ripened quickly. Also, Chu Xing, while collecting the fruits, said that everyone who serves the Chu family will receive one fruit. Xiao Hu was delighted with his young master, and was delighted along with Yang at such a gift. But suddenly their joy was interrupted by a guard who ran up to them and said everything was bad. He said that the cave was surrounded by a group of people with unknown intentions. But this did not frighten Chu Xing and Xiao Hu, but only made them laugh, because they thought that these people just needed help and were lost. But when they found out that there was a first elder there who wanted to steal the fruit, they immediately changed their faces. Chu Xing was surprised that after all this time, the first elder was still alive. Aggressive Yang was already ready to tear this Chu Ping to pieces. He only needed the order that Chu Xing had to give. But Chu Xing headed towards the exit and asked him not to rush and wait for his signal. When Chu Xing left the cave, he saw a pile of defeated bodies of his guards and a group of people. Chu Ping was confident in his abilities, and with a malicious smile was ready to destroy Chu Xing. But Chu Xing just laughed and said that Chu Ping and his useless team would not be able to do this, which infuriated Chu Ping even more. Suddenly, a strong, high-level tribal master appeared and did not consider Chu Xing as his opponent. Chu Ping hired him for fruit, and was so sure of Chu Xing's helplessness that he suggested that he surrender. He also pointed to his team, which, together with him, will receive 20% of all fruits for destroying Chu Xing. The rest also really wanted to profit from such essentially free, fiery fruits. And also confident in the simple work, Lin Chong promised to make an excellent coffin for Chu Xing. One of Xiao Hu's past acquaintances began to laugh at him because he went over to Chu Xing's side. But the confident Chu Xing stood in front of an entire army of trained warriors of lower fighting spirit, and a couple of quite strong ones, and invited them to be first to start the battle. They did not expect such a statement, and thought that Chu Xing had lost his mind to make such loud statements in their direction. And Chu Ping understood that Chu Xing was strong and should not be underestimated, so he did not hesitate to attack and fired an ice beam at him. But suddenly many of the lower class warriors simply began to suffocate and die. At first no one understood what was going on, but when they saw the poisonous Ian, everything fell into place. Chu Ping didn't understand why a psychopath like Yang came at such a critical moment, and didn't know what his intentions were. He didn't yet know that Yang was with Chu Xing, so he politely greeted him and decided to find out the reason for his appearance. But he, to spite Chu Ping, did not say a word to him, and simply walked near him and headed towards Chu Xing. He approached Chu Xing, bowed to him and apologized for acting rashly, but Chu Xing said that everything was fine. He was shocked to Lin Chong that such a strong master would serve such a brat. And Chu Xing said that he first spared Chu Ping back on that day at the Chu family gathering. But now he realized that the first elder does not learn from mistakes, and therefore cannot let him go so easily this time. But Chu Ping only laughed hysterically in response, and could not believe that Chu Xing dared. Not expecting an attack from Chu Xing, he decided to attack him first with the intention of finishing him off with one blow. But the poisonous Yang immediately came to the defense, took the entire blade, and then he simply delivered a powerful blow to the body, thereby seriously wounding him that even the three elders were shocked and took their sword out of anger. He still had no chance, because the first elder had already been destroyed. Those who were with the first elder bowed their heads in fear and promised to renounce him and leave Chu City and Shi Fen. Chu Xing destroyed the main enemy who controlled them, and therefore decided to spare them. They thanked Chu Xing in tears of happiness for showing mercy to them. Now the poison had something to do with another gang of thugs who were a little scared of Ian. Lin Chong began to make excuses that they were introduced into this whole matter by one elder who simply deceived them all. He asked Chu Xing for forgiveness, but he was surprised by such impudence to throw all the blame on the dead man. With a nervous smile on his face, he tried to tell the truth, but it was clear that he was blatantly lying. He called Chu Ping a terrible person who constantly deceives and misleads everyone. But Chu Xing unexpectedly replied that Chu Ping still belongs to the Chu family, and Lin Chong speaks so badly of him. Chu Xing was ready to help Patriarch Lin go to the next world right after Chu Ping. But to such insolence on the part of Chu Xing, he could not simply remain silent and answered him harshly that he was from a famous and influential family in the city of Shi Fen. And so, without expecting an answer, rushed into battle at them, because he could not simply accept this insult in his direction. Poisonous Yang was the first to get in his way, but Lin Chong missed with the first blow. And just one powerful concentrated blow to Lin Chong was enough to throw him back a couple of meters. But Yang was not going to stop there. I ran after Lin Chong, who had not yet landed on the ground from the blow. With Yan's second powerful blow, Lin Chong could no longer get up from the ground and simply lay next to his stunned comrades. Chu Xing approached him and asked if he had learned his lesson. That very badly wounded and now not so confident Lin told Patriarch Chu Xing that he understood everything perfectly. He lay there and couldn't even get to his feet, because Yang had severely damaged his internal organs. But Chu Xing said that he should have worried about the consequences earlier, and thought when doing something, so he ordered Yang to end his life. Lin Chong didn't want to end his life like this at all, and so he threw himself on his knees with all his strength and began to apologize. He asked for a second chance and promised to unite the Lin and Chu families forever, but Chu Xing didn't care and repeated his order to Yang once again. Then Lin Chong, trembling with fear, promised to serve the Chu family with water and fire. After these words, Chu Xing looked into Lin Chong's eyes and said that he was just joking. If Chu Xing wanted to kill him, he did it right away and did not listen to this nonsense. And Lin Chong himself fell to the ground from the stress he experienced and passed out. Then the poisonous Yang, with particular hatred, turned to Chu Xing about the issue of the Bai, Hu, Chen, and San family, who came to look at all this. They all trembled sharply like girls, and said that they would always serve the Chu family, only asking them to spare them. They all fell to their knees and promised to work for the welfare of the Chu family and asked for mercy from Patriarch Chu. Chu Xing thought this was funny, because in order to serve the Chu family, one must recognize Xiao Hu as his master. Xiao Hu, whom they recently called him names. Now they had to bow to him. This made Xiao Hu's head just boil. But the warriors, who were much more impressive than Xiao Hu, did not want to accept him as their master. Chu Xing noticed the discontent of the warriors, and at that same second, the poisonous Yang took a step closer to them. Chu Xing said that they allowed themselves too much with their little strength. They all didn't want to do this and were very angry, but they wanted to live more, so they accepted Master Xiao Hu. Xiao Hu was shocked by this, but Chu Xing firmly and deliberately stated that now these people are under his control and will serve only him. Xiao Hu immediately overcame his fear and some anxiety and promised that he would not let Chu Xing down. A couple of hours later, in the evening, many people came to Xiao Hu to give gifts to the Chu family, and Chu Xing realized that all internal and external problems had been resolved. Chu Xing decided to return to cultivation because he was confident that under the leadership of Yang and Xiao Hu, the Chu family would only grow upward. Chuxing took out the recently harvested Flameheart fruit and decided to use it now. 3 days later, outside the Chu family's house, Xiaohu and Poisonous Yang were practicing their powers, and Liu Xiang was sitting under a tree and looking at flowers when she suddenly noticed Chuxing. She immediately ran to him and noticed that he had made a breakthrough in his powers in such a short period of time. Liu Xiang was proud of her husband, but Chuxing was more worried about why she couldn't materialize her fighting spirit for some day now. Chuxing then approached Xiaohu and Yang and said that he would leave Chuxing and go on a journey. Xiaohu thought that Chuxing was going to Shifen City, but in fact, Chuxing was going to go train for a long time. Chuxing also ordered him to the Chu family during his absence and not show mercy to enemies. Miss Liu Xiang returned to the street at this time and was upset that Chuxing was leaving again and asked how long it would take. Chuxing said that it would be long enough and asked her to take care of the house during this time. Miss Liu Xiang was very glad that Chuxing trusted her and promised that she would wait for him and miss him. A couple of hours later, Chuxing had already transformed into a different person so that no one would recognize him during the trip. Chuxing also said goodbye to Liu Xiang before leaving, who at first did not recognize him. During his journey, Chuxing climbed a hidden dragon peak in search of fortune. From a past life, he remembered that somewhere here were the artifacts he needed. While he was placing the clamp on the stone peak, he noticed a fiery spirit eagle. It was a very dangerous and cruel spirit beast that could sense the change in space. So Chuxing decided to go down so as not to mess with it. Chuxing went down a little lower and noticed that there was a very strong wind in the gorge. This meant that he had reached the appointed place, which he remembered from his previous life. Chuxing was all exhausted while he was in a hurry trying to come here and hide from the fiery eagle, and therefore was able to notice some inscriptions. He couldn't understand it, so he moved forward on an adventure. He went inside the cave and noticed a beautiful garden with a waterfall and small structures that looked exactly like in a previous life. But Chuxing was more interested in the house with red and white sheets that covered the entrance. This house contained a space-cutting sword that was at the level of a royal artifact. It was impossible to simply take it, so Chuxing began to try to take it with the help of his spirit. A powerful burst of energy from the spirit of Chuxing flew into the house, which began to react with it. After the process, Chuxing noticed that they had merged together and was very happy about such an unexpected outcome. Chuxing was able to take it, but knew that it was a fake that was created by a fool. But if Chuxing found the necessary artifact, he could upgrade him to the royal level. The sword was still a powerful weapon that even Chuxing found difficult to handle. Chuxing decided to check whether his cultivation level could cope with it and hit the stone with it. After he successfully cut the stone, Chuxing suddenly noticed some kind of mechanism that was underwater. He decided to go down to him and felt a very strange sensation. It was a 9-essence fusion star formation that clearly shouldn't be here. She was very old and weakened, so Chuxing wanted to try to break her. But if Chuxing manages to break the seal, he will spend a lot of spiritual energy. And at this time, in the city of Shifen, 9 heads declared their loyalty to the Chu family. And the Chu family itself also announced cooperation with the Treasure Pavilion and the possession of the Fen Mountains. But the Shui family was indignant about this and wanted to eradicate the Chu family, since it was growing its strength very quickly. The Chu family was at first in the lowest position, but now in just a few months, they were able to achieve a high position and acquire connections. But the head of the Shui family was smart and understood that while they were humiliating the Chu family, she took action. One of the Shui family members thought that the Shui family's dissolution of ties with the pavilion was due to the Chu family influencing it. Others also thought about this option because they had been working closely with the Treasure Pavilion for a long time before this moment. Patriarch Shui suggested that they had long since teamed up.
Am I gonna find some bread in here?
He did not expect that Chuxing had such intentions and therefore misjudged his capabilities. But suddenly, Shui Qian appeared and immediately called Chuxing a pathetic person who uses pathetic methods. Patriarch Shui was very happy to see his daughter and asked about the success of cultivation, which according to Shui Qian was at the highest level. Patriarch Shui noticed that she had already reached the first collective spirit and now accurately confirmed the title of the first genius of the city of Shifen. Now Qin has stated that she is stabilizing the spirit power of the first heavenly level, and is also practicing the technique that Chuxing sold to her. But she does not know this. Shui was delighted with his daughter and hoped that they would take part in the fighting house competition and take first place there. But she, as the top of the Shifen city, began to condemn everyone for being afraid of some scum named Chu Xing. Shui decided to immediately change his mind and said that her words made sense in this situation.
Oh shit.
He asked her if it was necessary to send a spy to Chu City for surveillance, but Shui Qian did not understand her father at all, who could not make decisions himself. She asked for all this to be sorted out before it affected her cultivation, and Chu Xing at this time was able to open the seal, behind which there was a very powerful
steel pancake.
Here was the egg of a spiritual beast, or rather an altar that only an outstanding master could create. There could be high-rank spirit animals here capable of absorbing the wu yi of earth and sky. Chu Xing suggested that the altar was the spiritual egg. Chu Xing did not understand what class this egg had that they tried so hard to hide. There was even a covering formation on the egg.
That adds
unusual and
the neck sweater though.
Meanwhile, house music was happening in the treasure pavilion because Miss Yan was furious.
That's just
Boss
scratch.
Shen realized his mistake, that he could not keep track of how Chu Xing opened a cave with flaming fruits and created an alliance with many families. But Miss Yan did not blame him for this, because she could not predict such a sharp and rapid rise of the Chu family. Shen also couldn't believe such a fast growth and implied that the Chu family was being helped by some expert. Miss Yan understood that if the Chu family was helped by an expert, then they would not restrain themselves in their abilities. So she thought that Chu Xing was involved in everything. Boss Shen didn't expect Miss Yan to think so highly of Chu Xing, but Miss Yan was not a genius and didn't even know what to do now. And Boss Shen suggested that she continue spying. But Miss Yan said that it was already pointless, since the Chu family had already attracted a lot of envy and problems. Therefore, she decided not to spy anymore and just help them through partnership and make notes to the Shui family. Boss Shen agreed with her opinion and left, while Miss Yan looked out the window and was surprised at Chu Xing's abilities. No. A month later, the city of Chu continued to develop and only grew higher every day. Chu Xing had already returned home, but no one knew about his arrival. Even he himself did not recognize his house, which was very much restored. Suddenly, a cheerful Xiao Hu appeared from the door, happy to see Mr. Chu return. Chu Xing jokingly scolded Xiao Hu, who put his all into it, that now even Chu Xing did not recognize his home. Chu Xing entered the street of his house, where he was met by the poisonous Yang, who looked much better. Xiao Hu already had a level 4 tempering
Box of
body
paper
thanks
clips?
to the
I don't
poisonous
even-
Yang, who gave instructions. Chu Xing asked Xiao Hu to tell about all the incidents that happened during this time. First, he talked about the pavilion that scared the Shui family, which meant they had complete trust in the Chu family. He also said that the treasure pavilion also helped with the renovation of the house. But now, Chu Xing became interested not in business, but in Liu Xiang, who still had not shown up. Suddenly, Xiao Hu and Poisonous Yang fell down, and Chu Xing thought that something bad had happened. But everything worked out, because at that very second, Liu Xiang flew into the room and threw herself into the arms of Chu Xing. But suddenly, Chu Xing felt powerful ice ki and asked Liu Xiang what was happening. After these words, a woman emitting this qi appeared and immediately, without greeting, frowned and firmly asked Chu Xing about marriage with Liu Xiang. Chu Xing was in no hurry to answer because he noticed the signs of the Ice Nine Palace on her clothes. This palace is located on the snowy plain of the Cloudflow Dynasty server city. All the martial artists in the palace are emotionless and cold followers of women who have marks on their clothes denoting their status in the palace. The highest is 9 signs. This woman had 7 of them, which meant the level of palace elder. Xiao Hu introduced her as Lin Bing, who passed by 2 months ago and felt sympathy for Liu Xiang and stayed here. Xiao Hu apparently was afraid of her like fire and decided to move away to make tea, and Yang stood and could not believe that he left him alone with this dangerous woman. Yang felt that her strength was immeasurable and her intentions unknown, so he did not trust her. But Liu Xiang told Chu Xing that Bing Li is a very good person. But Chu Xing openly stated that she would not be able to deceive him if she could do it with Liu Xiang, so Bing Li immediately got down to business. She said that she wanted to take Liu Xiang as a student to the Ice Palace, and therefore she had to meet Chu Xing since he was her husband. Chu Xing was surprised, because Liu Xiang didn't even have a fighting spirit materialized. And Liu Xiang didn't even understand this. Chu Xing knew very well that the 9th Palace had few students, and each of them was a genius. So he did not understand why they needed Liu Xiang. Bing Ling understood how deep Chu Xing and Liu Xiang's feelings were. That's why I didn't rush them into a decision yet. Bing Ling showed a ring that had the first level of divine cultivation and could also provide 1,000 spiritual stones and the necessary herbs for cultivation. She knew that Liu Xiang wanted to enter the top 5 martial houses, so Bing Ling could help with that. Xiao Hu and Poisonous Yang were a little worried because she put forward 2 good conditions. Liu Xiang valued his wife, who was definitely not worth the amount that the 9th Ice Palace was offering. Chu Xing understood that something was definitely wrong here, but Bing Ling was ready to explain the decisions of the 9th Ice Palace. She gave the ring in Chu Xing's hand so that he could be convinced of its value. But Chu Xing didn't care and simply threw him to the ground, which struck Bing Ling, and he himself put forward conditions that presupposed, first of all, honesty in her words. He hugged Liu Xiang and said that he would not exchange his girlfriend for any jewels in the world. And then he asked Xiao Hu to escort the guest out of the house. Bing Ling was simply furious and showed it with all her appearance, so Xiao Hu was even afraid to approach her. She activated her ice key and said that it was not an offer that he refused, so now he will receive penalties. Liu Xiang asked Bing Ling not to do this, but Chu Xing had already taken out his sword and was ready to fight. But suddenly Bing Ling calmed down, because she understood that if she took Liu Xiang by force, she would not cooperate with her. Chu Xing noticed the art of the limited mask and was amazed by this power. And in Bing Ling said that the true intentions include the secret of the 9th palace. Chu Xing knew that the limited mask masks all the voices of the people in it, so that they would not be listened to, and understood that the secret was really very important for them. Bin Ling said that Liu Xiang's body is unique, and the cultivation of icy pulse stopping is hidden in her. Chu Xing was simply stunned by this news, and Liu Xiang didn't even understand what it was. Now, it became clear to him why Liu Xiang still cannot materialize a very powerful fighting spirit. Bing Ling realized from Chu Xing's reaction that he knew everything, and decided to explain to Liu Xiang that some people are born with mystical and rare powers. Therefore, people with these powers cannot materialize their spirit or use it carelessly, as they may die. If you do not control this icy key, then someday it will leave the body and turn everything within a 10-mile radius into an icy hell. But fortunately, Liu Xiang began to cultivate her fighting spirit at an early age, and therefore, if she goes to the 9th palace now, then the tragedy can still be prevented. Chu Xing inquired about the intentions of the 9th palace, which wants to suppress the icy 9th pulse stop. She also said that the first generations of the palace owners left behind bloody jade on which they died, controlling ice key and 9 impulse. But Chu Xing countered that blood jade does not suppress ice key but absorbs it. Bing Ling was a little worried because she didn't think that Chu Xing knew this, and Chu Xing still didn't stop asking how long it would take. It was pointless to lie, and she named the number 30 years, which greatly surprised Liu Xiang. Liu Xiang asked if she could take Chu Xing with her, to which she received a categorical refusal. Moreover, she will also have to invest all her time into this cultivation, and therefore she will not even be able to meet with Chu Xing during this time. Depressed, Liu Xiang went to Chu Xing, and Bing Ling reported a bad prognosis, that if she did not go with her, she might die in 6 months. Chu Xing asked the opinion of Liu Xiang, who did not want to part with Chu Xing for 30 years. But she was still ready for any decision from Chu Xing, who understood that their intentions were really good and important for her life. But he did not agree, so Bing Ling became furious and said that without leaving the 9th palace during this time, there would be dire consequences. Chu Xing said that he did not want to make Liu Xiang suffer, and therefore decided to share them with her. And about the icy stop of the pulse, Chu Xing was going to find solutions to the problem himself. But Bing Ling felt disgustedly funny at this statement, because she believed that Chu Xing could not do it. She couldn't believe Chu Xing's naivety about the disease, which was very severe. But she said that this is everyone's choice, and soon he will understand how quickly her ice key will grow. That evening, Li Xiang sat with Chu Xing, who blamed himself for such selfishness. But Liu Xiang was sure that he would find a way out. After such words, Chu Xing was moved and kissed Liu Xiang, promising to always protect her. The next day, he and Liu Xiang went to the pavilion, but for now he knew that he could only delay the inevitable by taking pills. He wanted to borrow Qin Yan's abilities to change the effects of Liu Xiang's disease. He came to the pavilion and greeted the servants, and immediately asked where Qin Yan was. They said that now Qin Yan cannot receive anyone, because she now has a very important guest. But Chu Xing did not care, and once again expressed his request. They were afraid of Qin Yan's anger, and said that she asked not to disturb her no matter what happened. But Chu Xing stood his ground, and was ready to take responsibility. Suddenly, Boss Shen came to save the two girls and politely greeted Chu Xing. Chu Xing said that he came just in time and he urgently needed to improve a few pills. Shen was also afraid of Qin Yan and suggested visiting the tea room first. Qin Yan's regiment communicates with the city lord. But Chu Xing did not have time for this. Boss Shen became very worried, and other people could not bear Chu Xing's impudence and waited for him to be thrown out. Liu Xiang also began to get a little worried because of the sidelong glances and offered to come next time. But Chu Xing asked her not to worry about it and promised her that he would sort it out. He asked Shen with great anger whether he was going to inform Qin Yan about his arrival or not. He was very worried and begged Chu Xing to wait and expressed the strongest apologies of his life. Chu Xing said that he was giving her the opportunity to improve the pills, and if she didn't agree now, then there would be no other chance. Boss Shen caved in and said that now Qin Yan will report everything. But Chu Xing decided to tease him and asked if it was worth doing so, if only the little patriarch of the city of Chu would bother her. But Boss Shen apologized for his incompetence and said that he would tell Miss Yan everything now. He approached the conversation room and was noticed by the Lord, who called him impudent. And then they looked at him together as if he were an enemy of the people, and the city lord saw that it was Qin Shen. Qin Yan was furious and said that he was letting her words slip through the cracks and was now thinking of throwing him out of the treasure pavilion. Boss Shen, worried and dear, asked to have mercy on him and dye his anger. He said that Patriarch Chu had arrived and wanted to improve the pills and couldn't wait. And Chu Xing himself came to the aid of the unfortunate Boss Shen at that moment. And Qin Yan's face immediately changed. But the lord of the city got angry and said that everyone was waiting for their turn, even himself. He could not believe such arrogance of an ordinary patriarch who was still standing here. And then the lord promised that he would deal with him himself if he did not leave. Qin Yan asked Gu Qing to stop, but the city lord asked her not to worry about such a small person. But Qin Yan repeated her words again. Then the lord did not understand at all how she could humiliate him in front of such a commoner, and he himself already went to him and was surprised by his progress in fighting spirit. He gave her the 3rd level formula, and she was ready to begin production right away. She ordered Qin Shan to prepare the material to make the Yang Flock pills. Well, Chu Xing asked Boss Shen to wait, because he had all the materials and he only needed to ensure that no one disturbed them. Then Qin Yan ordered him not to let anyone in while she was preparing the pills, otherwise he would answer with his head. Chu Xing called his wife, and Qin Yan was surprised to see her for the first time. Chu Xing introduced Liu Xiang to Miss Yan and said that she would proceed to the private room with them. At this time, Gu Qing was already leaving the pavilion and could not believe how they could simply forget about him. And now he clearly would not leave this in peace and would take revenge on Chu Xing. But at that moment, Boss Shen appeared and asked the city lord not to hold a grudge against Chu Xing. But he fell into a rage, so he could not be afraid of some ordinary patriarch. He immediately turned his anger on Boss Shen and said that he was too brave to talk to the lord like that, even though Boss Shen was Lady Yan's first assistant. He could not afford to hear insults from anyone in his direction and promised to teach everyone to behave properly. But Boss Shen decided to go straight to Chu Xing to clear up the whole situation. He told everything he knew about Chu Xing and that he helped bring the pills to level 3. Then the city lord began to understand the importance of Chu Xing for Lady Yan. The lord immediately changed and was now thinking about how to make amends for his rudeness. The Shui family learned about the incident in the treasure pavilion, which made Qin Yan forget about the city lord and their conversation. One of Patriarch Shui's assistants was struck by the fact that Gu Qing not only did not address this issue, but also gave an excellent gift to Chu Xing, and the careless intrusion into the room with the lord, which is a direct insult to His Highness, did not affect Chu Xing in any way. And if the city lord sided with Chu Xing, it meant that the Shui family had no allies left. Moreover, Patriarch Shui heard that Chu Xing's body hardening level had reached level 8. Shui Qian couldn't bear to hear his success, and asked everyone to shut up and not subscribe to his arrogance. She was sure that if Chu Xing received such influential support, then according to her predictions, it would be a fleeting glory. Moreover, she was confident of her victory in the elections to the Martial House, and therefore was not going to devote any more time to the Chu family. But someone in the crowd said that with the current level of cultivation, Chu Xing himself would be able to take first place in the Martial House. But Shui Qian was sure that it was impossible to raise cultivation so quickly using legal methods, so she was calm. In the meantime, worrying the Shui family will not help the Shui family, So Shui proposed to intervene in the elections of the martial house from within. And the main thing for Shui right now was the city of Chu, which was rapidly developing, and not Chu Xing himself, who took almost no part in this. They decided to weaken Chu City as quickly as possible until they found experts. Then Shui entrusted this task to get rid of the most important persons of the city of Chu Chongde, who was his younger brother. He understood the order that said the secret destruction of the top of the Chu. Shui relied on him and was confident that the situation had not yet gotten out of control. After 10 days, in Qin Yan's personal room, she managed to create a level 3 tablet using Chu Xing's formula. There were 17 of them in total, which was not enough for Chu Xing, and Miss Yan couldn't believe his reaction because she put all her strength into it. She decided to blame everything on the flaw of Chu Xing's formula, because she was guided by it when creating the tablets. Qin Yan was sure that if the venerable master found out about these pills, he would be speechless from their effect. But suddenly she noticed that Chu Xing's cultivation level had increased again, and she herself was speechless because it was simply impossible in such a period of time. Chu Xing didn't understand why she was so surprised, because this happened 15 days ago. Now she realized that she was too focused on creating pills and did not notice that the body's tempering was already at level 9. But Chu Xing decided to admit that he used some method to speed up the process. After all, Chu Xing used spiritual liquid to absorb energy from outside and gain additional strength. Qin Yan was surprised, because this was the first time she had seen such a spiritual liquid. Chu Xing added that spiritual liquid is much more expensive than spiritual channels, and has an impending level among other similar liquids. Qin Yan asked where he got it, but Chu Xing did not want to reveal secrets. Liu Xiang also used this method, but not for cultivation and to suppress ice qi. Qin Yan did not yet know about the ice pulse, and therefore did not understand how high the ice qi Liu Xiang could be. She was amazed at how much care Liu Xiang received from Chu Xing. They left the private room, and Chu Xing saw a bunch of guards who guarded their peace, and at that time the city lord also appeared. He apologized to Chu Xing for that misunderstanding and placed all these guards himself, and also invited Chu Xing to the banquet. But suddenly Xiao Hu, who was very scared and alarmed, rushed in. He said that a couple of days ago a bunch of people pretended to be bandits and attacked the city of Chu. Chu Xing asked who it was, to which Xiao Hu replied that thanks to the poisonous Yang, they managed to detain a couple of people who belonged to the Shui family. He realized that the Shui family had run out of patience and politely apologized to the city lord and turned him down as he had other problems. He also said goodbye to Qin Yan, whom he decided to thank later, and headed to his city. Chu Xing asked Liu Xiang to return home while they resolve issues, and then he turned to the poisonous Yan and asked about the wounds, but he replied that he only had minor external injuries. Then Chu Xing decided not to hesitate and immediately go to the underground prison to visit the bandits of the Shui family. There were quite a few enemies of the Chu family here who were about to escape, but could not because they were poisoned by Yang's poison. They didn't expect that poisonous Yang was working together with the Chu family, and therefore lost to such a master. Chu Xing himself and his team had already reached the prison and opened the front door. Immediately in front of him came the main attacker, who offered to do anything with them, just not waste their time. Chu Xing did not like this proposal because it would be too easy for them, but he began to insult Chu Xing and said that he succeeded thanks to the poisonous Yang. But Chu Xing didn't care what the man who was on the verge of death thought. Chu Xing decided to ask only one question, namely, what was the motive for the kidnapping of his parents 14 years ago, along with the Yunmeng martial house? Shui Chong did not want to admit the truth and hoped for salvation from Patriarch Shui. But Chu Xing told him not to hope for this. He turned away from Chu Xing and couldn't control his anxiety, so he said that he didn't know anything. Then Chu Xing realized that his accused would not say anything, so he offered him to make a deal. Chu Xing suggested that he recover from the poisoning and fight him. If Shui Chun wins, then he will go home, and if not, then he will tell the truth. Shui immediately perked up and agreed. This time, Chu Xing was not afraid to die. Xiao Hu warned that Shui Chong was a third-class collector and considered this battle too risky for Chu Xing. But Chu Xing, with a confident smile on his face, told his friend that he knew his stuff. Chu Xing threw him an antidote and gave him 1 hour to recover, and Shui Chong was already looking forward to the taste of victory. An hour later, a satisfied and confident Shui left prison. He did not dare to say much and immediately got down to business, activating his fighting spirit. Before the first attack, Yang warned Chu Xing that a rare artifact was hiding in Shui Chong's body. But Chu Xing did not hear him, as he was already repelling the attack of Shui Chong's writhing snake swords. Shui Chui continued to press with all his might with great force that Chu Xing could not launch a counterattack. Then Shui Chui put in his maximum strength and saw that Chu Xing was having a very hard time blocking his blows. Then Shui Chui decided to use the second movement of his technique, which was called the Furious Snake Dance. Shui Chui was sure that Chu Xing would not be able to avoid his attacks, but Chu Xing had his own plan. Chu Xing used a martial art that increases the horror factor. As a result of which you can easily control the actions of the enemy. By closing your eyes and exuding energy outward, you can predict where the blow will be struck. Thanks to this, Chu Xing was able to advance directly towards Shui Chong, who stood like a
1,
pillar
3, and 4.
Shui Chui found himself on the ground and noticed that he was wounded in the neck,
3.
and Chu Xing stood completely undamaged from his attacks. He was furious because he didn't understand anything, and said that he didn't count this round. But Chu Xing didn't care what he thought, because now it was his turn to attack. But before that, Shui Chui saw Chu Xing's sword, which was of a state level, that it didn't occur to him what level one must have to control it. Chu Xing remembered what he said to him, so he decided to prove that he could wield such a sword. Shui Chui, already in fear, said not to rejoice ahead of time, but he was already morally defeated, and Chu Xing began to attack that Shui Chui could not keep up with his movements. Chu Xing went behind Shui Chun and broke his morale with one blow. Shui Chui lost all his spiritual energy, and he was simply shocked by what was happening. And Chu Xing decided to tease him and asked his opinion about his performance. But Shui Chui, who lost his precious artifact, was still capable of something. Shui Chu's trump card was the ability to fight, using only level 9 body hardening, and he could also destroy an artifact with just one movement. Shui Chui noticed that Chu Xing could no longer block his attacks, and therefore decided to finish the job he started. But he didn't expect that Chu Xing could cut his hands with just one move without any hesitation. Then Shui Chui realized that his entire family underestimated Chu Xing, and now he is definitely not trash. Xiao Hu was very happy for the young master's victory, and Yang was even surprised. And Chu Xing said that now it's time for Shui Chu to fulfill his part of the bet and tell him what happened 14 years ago. But he just laughed and said that he didn't know anything, and Chu Xing had found the wrong person. Xiao Hu could not believe that they were so vilely deceived by this scoundrel. Then the enraged Yang approached him, and Shui Chui offered to end him, to which Yang was gladly ready. But Chu Xing stopped him and approached Shu Yu Chui, for whom he changed the energy flow points. Shui Chui did not understand Chu Xing's intentions, but when he experienced hellish pain, he understood what it was all about. Chu Xing knew very well that at the peak of a cultivator's spiritual energy, the sea appears, and if you change its flow in the opposite direction, a very strong but not fatal pain will appear, which can continue until the end of life if Chu Xing has the will. Then Shui Chui gave up and agreed to tell everything he knew, just not to feel this pain. Chu Xing directed the flow back to normal and asked Xiao Hu to give him some water. He said that 14 years ago, a fighting house came to them and offered a high price for elimination, to which his greedy brother immediately agreed. He also said that not only the Martial House, but also the Liu Yun royal clan was behind the assassination attempt. The Shui family was only responsible for the elimination, and the real customers were the Martial House and the Liu Yun royal clan. Chu Xing also meant a fighting house, but the fact that the royal clan spent money on kidnapping 2 commoners seemed strange to him. Chu Xing asked about the reason for the intervention of the royal clan, but Shui Chui no longer knew such information. Suddenly Xiao Hu appeared, who was furious, and said that after killing the members of the Chu family, he would definitely not leave here. Shui Chui cried like a girl, and Xiao Hu was ready to tear him apart right there, but Chu Xing decided to pardon him with one condition. A couple of minutes later, Shui Chui was thrown into prison without arms and with eyes filled with fear. After a good kick in the back, he rolled head over heels towards his brothers. Xiao Hu and Poisonous Yang also came in behind him and were very angry. Enraged by Xiao Hu for the incident that Chu Xing gave Shui Chong to be torn to pieces, he was ready to do the most terrible things to him. That same night, Patriarch Shui did not understand why there was no news about the Chu family. Shui Qing asked her father not to worry, and thought that Chu Xing had returned, and the plans had simply changed. But Shui could not calm down, because they still had to be informed. But suddenly, a guard burst into their room and reported the arrival of Chu Xing. Shui was very scared and worried and then asked who was accompanying Chu Xing. Shui Qing was generally calm and even a little annoyed because it was quite late for the visit, and the guard reported 2 more people who were dressed in black cloaks. A couple of minutes later, Chu Xing had already entered the hall, where everyone was simply silent. The first to speak was Patriarch Shui, who inquired about the reason for such a late visit. But from the beginning, Chu Xing began with the trivial question of why Shui did not congratulate him on promoting himself as a patriarch and creating connections with many clans of the city. The patriarch said that his body was in no condition to keep track of everything outside his city, but this only made Chu Xing smirk. But Chu Xing gloatingly declared that he had not come to create problems, but to present gifts. Shui noticed some kind of catch, and Chu Xing snapped his finger and 2 people in a cloak entered the palace. Shu Yu wondered what Patriarch Chu meant by gifts, and then one of Chu Xing's assistants removed the black cloth from Shui Chong, who was left without arms and gagged in his mouth, sitting silently. Everyone was simply amazed and angry at such a gift, and Shui Qian was even a little worried. Chu Xing knelt on the stroller and hoped that they liked the gift of the defeated spy, Shui Chong. He also said that the remaining 100 people turned into sand under the influence of Yang's poison, which Chu Xing did not mention. Shui Qian felt a powerful and terrifying aura, and Patriarch Shui was already on the limit so as not to attack Chu Xing. But he could not restrain himself and activated his fighting spirit and attacked Chu Xing, who stood motionless. But Chu Xing knew what he was doing because at that very second, the poisonous Yang appeared in front of him, which no one expected to see. Patriarch Shui was stunned, but still entered the battle, making the first blow, which Yang parried. Then Yang responded, which was much stronger than Shui's blow, and simply created a small explosion. After this explosion, the entire hall of the Shui temple turned into a pile of stones falling from the ceiling and columns, which could not stand it and fell. Shui Qian was simply shocked and very worried because her father was seriously injured and lying in this trash. The others were shocked when they saw the poisonous Yang who served Chu Xing. Yang said that they were tired of living once. They decided to go against Master Chu Xing. Chu Xing did not want to continue the pointless battle, and so he and Yang headed out. Now Patriarch Shui understood why all of Chu Xing's rivals lost, because they also did not know until the last moment who Chu Xing's trump card was. But Shui Qian was wondering why the poisonous Yang was called Chu Xing a master, so she ran after them. She threateningly asked him to stop, but Chu Xing actually didn't want to listen to her, but decided to find out what she wanted. She wanted to know why Chu Xing targeted the Shui family and assumed that it was because of provocation from Shui Chong. But Chu Xing completely eradicated her words and said that it was the Shui family that first started this whole war. Chu Xing told the surprised Shui Qian that the Shui family warriors attacked Chu City and killed many people, so he repaid the same coin. According to Chu Xing, if every member of the Chu family was on the extermination list 134 years ago, then he was destroyed right now by the entire Shui family, because Chu Xing considered this an important blood debt to the Shui family. Shui Qian was annoyed because she didn't understand what 14-year plan Chu Xing was telling her about. Chu Xing knew that this naive lady did not know the whole dark truth of the Shui family, so he decided to close the dispute in the elections to the martial house. Then Shui Qian's arrogance returned again, and she confirmed his words and promised to destroy him on the day of the competition. She promised that she would personally deal with him during the elections, and then all the problems of the Shui family would be over. Yang and Chu Xing walked home through the dense forest, and Yang believed that Chu Xing had missed a great opportunity to destroy the Shui family. Poison Yang believed that with the Shui family's current strength, they could easily destroy them. But Chu Xing knew that the Yanmeng martial house was collaborating with them, so he thought that he would not be able to deal with him just yet. And Chu Xing organized this whole circus to show the current situation and the power of the Chu family, so that they would not make plans behind their backs. Back then, Poisonous Yang was already afraid that they might call upon the Yanmeng martial house for protection. But Chu Xing was sure that Shui would not play with fire, and would not drag the martial house into this game. Although the Shui family was weak at the moment, it still did not harm the interests of the martial house, so they still remained on their side. But at the same time, Yanmen's martial house did not want to interfere in this small matter, and therefore Yan was delighted with Chu Xing's plans. But Chu Xing decided to abruptly change the topic and asked how Yang was developing in the new technique. Yang smiled and said that he would be able to move.
Hopefully
to the
I
third
ain't gonna
level
die no
after
time
3 years.
fucking soon.
But Chu
Trying to
Xing
stay alive in
exhaled
this game is a
heavily. He was
rough.
a little upset because it had been too long. Chu Xing promised to write him a
Trying to stay alive in this bitch is hard.
must be learned to move to the first earthly level. Chu Xing wanted Yang to reach the first earthly
Thank
level
God I'm still alive for the most part.
Marshall House. But Yang became nervously angry because it was a very short time.
Damn, what the? Oh, really? That's what we're doing now?
But Chu Xing asked him not to
There we go.
follow his method. At this time,
Yeah, nice cold water bottle. How full is my water bottle? Man, look.
She couldn't believe that the once weak Chu Xing now didn't care about her. The maid who was
Drowsy. Okay, I'm not too bad. I'm just bored as fuck. It's 4 in the morning.
said that her anger was normal. But she
Say
said
it.
please do. But Shui Qian was more interested
How much water is in my water bottle I got?
Shui Qian was very upset that after this incident,
Let me not.
the Shui family suffered regression, and Chu Xing's cultivation grew very quickly. But Shuya was more concerned about the situation of the city of Chu and her condition. Now Yang stood in the defense of Chu City, and in the future,
Oh, yeah, because I don't got. Yeah, didn't the last one break or some shit? Or did I drop? I probably dropped it. Instant popcorn, and there's a microwave right here? I ain't had no popcorn.
She turned on her arrogance again and was confident that with her current strength, killing Chu Xing would not be a problem.
I don't think honey goes bad.
The strength of Shui Qian.
And fucking sugar packets. That's a kettle. I guess you can make tea.
Very angry that Chu Xing had changed a lot and was not even afraid to talk to him. And Shui Qian had never paid
Okay.
until recently. Everything began to go in the direction of Chu Xing. He turns
Hey,
everything
okay.
around.
Let's put this fucking can opener somewhere too, show me.
Now he stole almost all the glory from her, and therefore Shui Qian
Raggedy ass napkin out of here.
But she was also wondering what happened 14 years ago. But Shui avoided answering and told
Shit.
her to focus on cultivation and not listen to this nonsense. He also asked her to send her to Heishui City early, since the elections for the Marshall House would begin there. And Shui
Get me
said
some
that
fresh
he would not lend
potatoes.
a helping hand in the elections to the Marshall House. So he became confident in Shui Qian's victory. Shui also warned Shui Qian that she had a huge responsibility to wash away the humiliation from the Shui family. At the market in the Treasure Pavilion, many people tried to buy grade 9 spiritual cores, of which there were very few. Chu Xing and Poisonous Yang also went to the market, where they were kindly greeted.
Can I actually?
by servants working
I bet you I
Suddenly,
can't
Chu
move
Xing
this
called
motherfucker.
out boss Shen, who was apparently very happy to see Chu Xing. He immediately took Chu Xing
Yeah, too heavy for inventory.
since he himself was about to go to his residence to invite him to the pavilion. In a specially designated room, Chu Xing was met by Miss Yan and the city lord.
Nah,
But Chu
give me
Xing
this.
didn't understand why the city lord was so polite to him, because he even asked him for forgiveness.
Ugh.
Chu Xing then remembered that misunderstanding and asked not to bring it up again, because he had already forgotten about
I
it.
wish I could just
Lord
push
Gu
this
also
motherfucker.
gave Chu Xing a small gift in the form of mind-stabilizing jade. This stone was quite a precious spiritual stone and could calm the mind and heart for master cultivation. He also gave Chu Xing soft armor that was at the level of a state artifact and could withstand 2 hits from a cultivator. The Lord
Okay,
asked
well.
what Chu Xing thought about this, but he did not understand why he was giving him such gifts for nothing. But in fact, Miss Yan said
I
they
mean,
had
what
a
do I got?
failure
Do I got any medication on me to get through this?
a failure in the transition to the earthly spiritual level
Shit.
to Dark Yan. Therefore, the Lord was looking for a way to solve everything.
I don't even got a health
The
pack.
doctor
Health
knew
bag.
the pill could help him. So she turned to Chu Xing, who refused. Because if Chu Xing prepares a new recipe for the 100 Yang pill, then not only will it not cure his injury, but it will also lower his cultivation further. Lord Gu was very upset and was already thinking of coming to terms with it.
Okay.
Miss Yan tried to calm him down, but Chu Xing hastened to rejoice
That'll
that
work.
his case was not
Let's
hopeless.
see. what we
Chu Xing proposed the most banal way to absorb
Sneak.
Dark Yan
Damn it.
Qi when moving to the earthly level. Lord Gu didn't understand the meaning at first and thought it was a brilliant
got. There you
idea.
go.
But then he suddenly became furious. He believed that the method proposed by Chu Xing was crap, because he tried to break through the level 9 body tempering with this very method, and he failed. After these words, he began to try to attack Chu Xing, thinking that he was laughing at the city lord. But Chu Xing laughed a little and said that he really knows a way to break through to a new level, but only under his conditions. Lord Gu immediately calmed down and asked what method Chu would offer this time and was ready for any conditions. Then Chu Xing said the
How's
first
my
was
weapon
the Lord,
doing?
and in search of 9 cores of the 9th class, which was very difficult. And it is advised advisable that the Lord find them before the elections to the Marshall House begin, because this was the true reason for visiting the Treasure Pavilion. The Lord believed that this was too high a price for such a short period of time, because there were only 2 such cores in his residence. But Miss Yan believed that such a problem could be solved with money, and it did not seem difficult. But the second condition was even worse, which stated that after a successful breakthrough, Lord Gu would have to protect the safety of the Chu family for 10 years. But before he had time to give an answer, the poisonous Yang appeared, who wanted to say something. Lord Gu was surprised that all the marks on Yang's face had disappeared, but when he learned that Yang served Chu Xing, he was simply stunned. Poisonous Yang advised Gu Qing to join Chu, because thanks to Chu Xing, his black blood disease disappeared. He also added that achieving the
I guess you can only repair it so fucking much, huh? Oh, okay.
Chu Xing decided not to wait any longer and said that if Gu Qing did not agree, then he and Poisonous Yang would go.
Learn a lot, didn't we?
Left when Miss Yan caught up with him and asked him to stay in the pavilion while the city.
Yeah, I'm tired. I got some sleep.
Then asked her for 2 rooms cultivating his fighting spirit and a room for Poisonous Yang. Miss Yan prepared the best room for them, which even had a shower. Chu Xing himself had already begun preparing for a breakthrough, but was afraid because his body was at the 9th level of hardening, and he only had 6 spiritual cores. But Chu Xing still decided to try, because he did not have time to develop too slowly. A little teaching about spiritual cultivation, which says that when a master is cultivated,
please don't let
C appears in his body equal to the strength of a spiritual beast. Therefore, you can increase your cultivation with the help of a spiritual core, but you must take into account that the level of the cultivator must be higher. But Chu Xing has not even reached the spiritual level, so if he is not careful, he will be torn apart like a balloon. But Chu Xing had a trump card in the form of the 9th Spirit Revolution technique of a very significant level, which Chu Xing learned about from his past life from Emperor Hun Yan. Thanks to this technique, energy is compressed as if the sun were compressed to the size of the moon and its further surge. After 10 days, Chu Xing used the last spiritual core and finally completed the 6th revolution. Chu Xing decided to take a rest, and when he was swimming, he realized that Hun Yan had wasted a lot of his pills to cultivate this technique. At this time, Poisonous Yan was still sitting near Chu Xing's room, and Miss Yan did not understand why he did not go to his room. She couldn't believe how someone as unstoppable as Yang could protect the master with his soul. But suddenly Ian opened his eyes and stood up, heading towards the door. At this moment, Chu Xing came out, who was pleasantly surprised that Yang had reached the earthly level thanks to his methods. Yang was very grateful to this method.
Got that lunchbox popping. Yay.
Chu Xing was pleased that he did not disappoint him, but when Boss Shen and Miss Yan approached them, they became disgusted with such strong loyalty. Chu Xing also asked not to.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure there's uglies out here. I can hear somebody growling.
Miss Yan suspected.
Now I'm in Countberg, so.
Chu Xing also noticed his business partners approaching and greeted them. Chu Xing asked Miss Yan how things were going with the city lord who was still cultivating, according to Miss Yan. Chu Xing decided to take a look, and as soon as he approached, he heard very loud sounds that he didn't like. Chu Xing immediately asked Poisonous Yang to immediately blow up the stone door. Behind her sat Lord Gu, who radiated powerful dark energy and at the same time a green substance. Miss Yan didn't understand why this was happening, and Boss Shen was horrified when he felt this powerful dark yang qi. Chu Xing asked everyone to go out and wait outside because Lord Gu had already retreated on cultivation norms. He first tried to knock him out of cultivation with blows, but nothing helped because he was too worried. Then Chu
Give me
Xing
these
decided to
garbage
use the last
bags.
option,
Thank
and
you.
the only technique that
Because
could
I
be
need
found.
to make me some
This was an
barrels.
energy absorption technique that takes away all the excess energy in a cultivator's body. Chu Xing concentrated and gathered all his strength and touched Lord Gu.
I
But
will
the
take
energy of
all
the Lord's
that.
body was too high, so Chu Xing simply flew away. Poisonous Yang ran up to Chu Xing in fear, who got a good deal, but he was not going to stop because there was no effect. Lord Chu was already beyond the point of no return,
God.
but there was still a way to return him to normal. He decided to bring him to his senses with a powerful blow, kicking him right in the head. He immediately came to his senses and flew into the wall and, not understanding anything, began to blame Chu Xing. But Chu Xing only got angry and said that Lord Gu had entered into cultivation deviation, and if it weren't for Chu Xing, he would have already died. Chu Xing began to blame Lord Gu, who again rushed with his development and therefore got stuck at the 9th 9th level of body tempering. Lord Gu began to apologize to Chu Xing.
That's why.
Because he was afraid that he would never be able to move to the earthly level, and therefore broke the rules. But Chu Xing activated his power. Then Lord Gu realized that he had moved to the earthly level. Lord Gu was incredibly happy and ran around like a little child, and then accepted Chu Xing's invitation to become his security guard. But Chu Xing suddenly refused his services because he understood that he would be saved more often than he saved him. Then Lord Gu decided to make friends with Yang, but then he only got annoyed by him. The Lord fully fulfilled the first condition and issued the last
I got two of those.
and Chu Xing thanked everyone and left. Miss Yan asked Boss Shen how Chu Xing was able to develop Lord Gu's cultivation. Shen didn't know the answer to that question. She asked how much was left before the elections to the fighting house, and when she heard the figure of 15 days, her face somehow changed. She immediately sent Boss Shen to the Imperial City, and no matter who tells him what, he must go there immediately. She gave him
I legit just picked everything.
accepted her order. At this time, Chu Xing had already reached his home, where he was met by his wife, who was very tired of waiting for him. Chu Xing asked about Liu Xiang's condition, and she said that thanks to the pills, the cold in her body had decreased. Suddenly, Chu Xing noticed something in Liu Xiang's hands and asked to look at it. Liu Xiang was very embarrassed and asked him not to laugh at this. She showed him the talismans in the form of their figures, so that Chu Xing could win the elections to the martial house. But Chu Xing noticed a woman's breasts on his figurine and did not understand what she had left there. Liu Xiang was very offended and called him a pervert, attacking him. She took the first object she came across and began to try to hit Chu Xing, and he asked her to calm down. After 10 days, Chu Xing was able to completely gain control over the Spirit Revolution technique. The technique he used was difficult even for those who were already on the spiritual level. It was already autumn outside, and Chu Xing was really looking forward to her breakthrough. The elections for the martial house will start earlier and will be held in the city of Dark Water. So Chu Xing, along with Liu Xiang and Yang, decided to leave early. But Chu Xing justified this by the fact that Liu Xiang cannot ride a horse, so they will go by carriage. And Liu Xiang was actually surprised that she would go with Chu Xing. Chu Xing decided that due to recent circumstances, it was better for Liu Xiang to be with him. Xiao Hu said that he wants to stay and take care of and develop the Chu family while Chu Xing is away. Chu Xing decided to agree with him and left the city to him while he was away. In the morning, when the sun was just rising from the horizon, Chu Xing was met by Lord Gu, who would accompany them to the city of Dark Water. The Lord also decided to prepare warm clothes for Chu Xing and Liu Xiang, since the journey was supposed to be very cold. Chu Xing
What the
thanked Lord Gu
what? I cannot
and
open
Liu
it because
Xiang had
because
already put
I'm
on
full of
the
my.
clothes, which she really liked. They all got ready and set off.
I'm that full.
And Liu
That's
Xiang was
dangerous.
glad that at least she had already gotten out of the house somewhere. Xiao Hu and his team waved to Chu Xing and Liu. Last night, Bing Ling gave information about Du Xiang's 9th icy pulse stop to her mistress. She immediately ordered her to bring Liu Xiang here. Otherwise, by her order, Bing Ling
Wait a minute.
Back then, Bing Ling, who had been seasoned here for years, did not experience any emotions and simply accepted the order. The Shui family learned that Chu Xing had gone to the Dark Water City, and some of the Shui high-ranking officials wanted to catch them on the way and kill them. But Patriarch Shui was dissatisfied with his idiots who wanted to make an attempt on Chu Xing's life in the presence of Gu Qing and the poisonous Yang. He also said that recently his ambassador arrived in the city of Dark Water and established contact with Elder Gu, not to be confused with Gu Qing. And Elder Gu promised to eliminate
And cotton balls. That's what that is. Cotton balls.
through to the 3rd level of spiritual power.
Why can't I open this now? Can I open this?
That Elder Gu would not let them down and would help them.
Whatever.
People rejoiced in anticipation of Chu Xing's death. Therefore, Shui asked not to worry about Chu Xing, because now he decided to deal with other obstacles. Patriarch Shui asked for a list of all the people who supported Chu, and was going to carry out revenge at the end of the elections to the martial house. At this time, Chu Xing's team had already walked half the way, but suddenly 3 warriors appeared behind them, galloping towards them. Liu Xiang looked out the window and saw passing warriors who apparently were also on their way to the city of Dark Waters. Gu Qing said that the elections were organized by 5 main forces, so there are a lot of people rushing there. Gu Qing also added that a large number of people will make the elections even more difficult, since they themselves are strict and include a test of talent and strength. Poisonous Yang knew that even the Emperor did not dare to underestimate them, because they choose the best, and the chance of becoming one of them is almost zero. All 5 houses, together with the emperor, supported the well-being of the dynasty, and Liu Xiang was very interested in where Chu Xing wanted to go.
Pizza tape, thank you.
The strongest martial house was considered to be the most ancient house of Ling Xiao, where there are many experts of the heavenly spiritual level. Then comes the house of Yan Men. Next, there were already 3 other houses of equal strength, so if Chu Xing has a choice, it would be better to choose the first or 2 fighting house. But Chu Xing's main goal was not the fighting house, but the opportunity to get to the imperial city. After all, if he can live there, he will be able to control the power of Liu Xiang, which can become higher than him. After a couple of hours, they decided to stop near a beautiful river called Jiaguan. Lord Gu advised everyone to have lunch, because then the journey would be without stops. And by evening, they would already be in the city.
Okay, the school has been searched.
Dropped Liu Xiang out of the carriage.
Just get away from that wall.
Yang said that there was a hotel nearby.
Yeah, I know I'm bored, but I need to eat. Get my shit up. I'm not about to fucking die.
Was jealous, but Yang asked him to shut up. Chu Xing led Liu Xiang through the forest to the river, where Liu Xiang was caught. A very beautiful tree stood alone on a small island. But suddenly, Bing Ling appeared, who tracked them down and grabbed the 2 of them to carry out the kidnapping of Liu Xiang. Chu Xing was clearly not happy to see her. Bing
Cool.
Ling saw
Alright.
that he had found a way to save her.
I got so many books to read through.
Chu Xing, but now she was obliged to take Liu Xiang, which Chu Xing accordingly did not.
I got my shotgun sitting on the ground out there in front of my house where I died at because I dropped it on purpose.
But the enraged Chu Xing, for whom everything did not go according to plan, clearly was not going to give Liu Xiang so easily. But suddenly the whole fight ended in the blink of an eye when Chu Xing was simply frozen. At the same second, the poisonous Yani Lord Gu appeared and heard the sounds of battle. But Bing Ling was able to freeze both of them with one swing, which meant her level was at the heavenly level. Then she walked up to Liu Xiang without hesitation and offered to go quietly, but Liu Xiang did not want to go with her. But Bing Ling didn't care and grabbed Liu Xiang by force. But at that moment, Chu Xing emerged from the ice. Chu Xing was truly furious and apparently used his best techniques. With an incomprehensible martial art, he was able to paralyze Bing Ling, from which she was even shocked. But she was still at too high a level and repelled Chu Xing.
On my back, I still can't because I'm too heavy.
Away and realized that the body in which he was now located was too weak. Then Bing Ling took Liu Xiang's arm again. He did not want to listen to her and broke away, immediately running to Chu Xing.
Wait a minute, I got too much shit in my bag. I can't even. Hold up.
Bing Ling was already behind her and trying to open Liu Xiang's eyes. Bing Ling informed Liu Xiang that her husband would not be able to protect her, but Chu Xing was already able to rise to his feet at this time, and he was ready to continue the battle.
I need to get me a base outside of this fucking town. Make timer, add timer. Make remote control version 1, version 2. What the fuck? Okay, so make bread though. I know some of them already. Standard shit. Make mildew cure. Make flies cure. Jeez.
She was shocked by his courage because Chu Xing had not yet reached the spiritual level.
Alright.
He already dared to resist Bing Ling. But Bing Ling praised Chu Xing for a very good sword attack that could easily kill her, even though she was at the heavenly level. Therefore, she considered Chu Xing a dangerous opponent and decided to kill him. But Chu Xing only grinned. She didn't understand how he, being in her aura, continued to rise to his feet and attack from time to time. In fact, at first she joked about elimination, but now she was seriously thinking about it. Chu Xing could barely stand on his feet, but he did not give up. He was ready to give Liu Xiang.
Alright, to fix that problem.
But Bing Ling thought differently, and with the help of her fighting spirit, she took it in and squeezed it. Chu Xing tried with all his might to say that he would not give up Liu Xiang, but Bing Ling could no longer tolerate him and was going to kill him. But suddenly Liu Xiang showed herself, who, in tears, agreed to go with her to the ice palace, but asked not to touch Chu Xing. Bing Ling clarified her wish, to which she replied yes, if she releases Chu Xing. Bing Ling released Chu Xing and said that it was too late, so she really wanted to mock Liu Xiang, who did not understand anything. She ran up to him and started shaking him, but in fact, Chu Xing was seriously injured, but was still alive. And Liu Xiang was already in tears, begging him to open his eyes. And Bing Ling said that he had just lost consciousness. Bing Ling handed Liu Xiang a bottle of medicine and asked to give it to Chu Xing for recovery. But Liu Xiang decided to use it in a slightly different way. Bing Ling said that she did not have time and they needed to go, but Liu Xiang asked for a little more time to stay with Chu Xing. Liu Xiang stroked Chu Xing's head and blamed herself for everything, and thought that Chu Xing would have been better off marrying her sister. She blamed herself for all the troubles, and the fact that because of her, Chu Xing and his friends were now injured. She hugged him in tears and believed that she did not deserve Chu Xing's love. But suddenly, at that moment, Bing Ling's medicine took effect, and Chu Xing opened his eyes. But Chu Xing immediately regained all his memories, and he could not calm down and looked for Bing Ling. Liu Xiang sadly said that he no longer needed to fight with the elder of the Ice Palace. Chu Xing immediately understood everything and could not believe what was happening. But Liu Xiang said that she did it to save him. Chu Xing was shocked that all his efforts were in vain, but Liu Xiang said that she could not watch him die, so she did this. Liu Xiang wanted to protect Chu Xing at least once, and then Chu Xing immediately remembered a similar moment from a past life. His nerves could not stand it, and in hysterics he rushed to Liu Xiang and begged her not to sacrifice herself for him. But Liu Xiang easily calmed him down with a good kiss. Bing Ling could no longer stand it and grabbed Liu Xiang, whose hand tears flowed from her eyes again. Bing Ling activated her fighting spirit again and ordered him to take off with Liu Xiang. Liu Xiang cried like a little child and asked Chu Xing for forgiveness. Chu Xing still couldn't come to terms with grief and promised to come and pick her up from the 9th Ice Palace. They had already flown quite far, and Chu Xing, with the last of his strength, asked her to just wait for him. Liu Xiang promised him that she would wait, and Bing Ling felt a little funny at Chu Xing's stupidity. And Chu Xing was no longer filled with grief, but with anger and rage, and now he promised to take revenge on the 9th Ice Palace. At this time, they were already in the city of Dark Waters, where tomorrow the elections of the best candidates for the fighting house will take place. Even before the start of the elections, all participants
Scared the fucking piss out of me, I tell you that much.
the city of Dark Water. Chu Xing, who had recently arrived, stood at the window and was desperately holding the Liu Xiang talisman. Although Chu Xing had incredible fighting abilities from his past life, he could not produce even a fraction of his strength, and lost to such a weak heaven-level opponent. Now Chu Xing decided to completely change his plan of action. At this time, Miss Yan came to his room, who was very concerned about the condition of Chu Xing, who was attacked on the road. Chu Xing said that he was fine, but Miss Yan saw how terrible Chu Xing looked. Then Yan decided to ask who stole Liu Xiang and suspected the Shui family. But Chu Xing didn't hide it, and immediately set out the 9th Palace. Yan was shocked. The Emperor was afraid to Chu Xing laid out the 100 Yang Pill enhancement method and spiritual liquid on the table, but Miss Yan didn't understand why Chu Xing gave it to her. But Chu Xing only thanked her for her help recently, which made Miss Yan a little touched. But Chu Xing simply did not want to be indebted, so he gave this recipe, and he himself inquired about Miss Yan's visit. She had already completely forgotten, because she was a little worried and wanted to introduce Chu Xing to her master. Chu Xing was surprised.
I don't even know what that is.
The treasure pavilion herself had another master, whose name it turns out was Yang Yan. But this master was very strong, and already at the age of 28, he became an alchemist of 5 fields. Since Chu Xing has been cooperating with Miss Yan for quite a long time, the master became interested in seeing him. Since he represents the martial house of Ling Xiao, Chu Xing didn't want to see anyone at all. Although thanks to Yang Yan, he could easily go to Ling Xiao's martial house. Chu Xing was more interested in the option if Chu Xing did not like this alchemist who would hold elections to the martial house. But Miss Yan asked him not to worry about this, because she believed that it was better to get to know each other first. But Chu Xing didn't want to see anyone and asked Miss Yan to leave because it was already late. But suddenly, someone burst into their room. It was Yan Yan, who had already been standing outside the door for a very long time and was still perplexed at what impudent person was trying to drive away his student. Yang Yan lit his pipe and looked at Chu Xing with a very heavy look, who had the courage to behave so impudently.
Trying to live out here.
Chu Xing trying to scare him and called him an arrogant bastard. Miss Yan was very nervous because everything did not go according to plan and tried to calm the master down, saying that Chu Xing was just joking. Then Yang Yan asked Chu Xing about the joke, but he replied that he was only telling the honest truth. Then Yang Yan could no longer calm down because it was too rude for him. But Chuxing decided to answer with the same coin and presented it to him at the table on which he was standing. Master Yan came down from the table, and Miss Yan asked why he didn't wait for the signal. But Yan Yan was just tired of standing outside the door and waiting for an invitation. But suddenly he became enraged again when he saw Chuxing's arrogant look, and said that he would not take him into his martial home. But Chuxing did not need Yang Yan's help, because the elections were based on strength,
30.
but not on connections. Yang Yan was surprised that Chuxing was so confident in his abilities and was about to leave. But before leaving his house, he asked Chuxing's name. He promised that he would monitor his performance in these elections, and asked him to not leave. Lord Gu and Yang saw a dissatisfied and slightly angry Yang, who in fact was greatly hurt by Chuxing. And Miss Yan was already offended by Chuxing.
Trying to see the engine.
What was happening to him, because she tried very hard to bring her master here.
That boy's looking good.
That I had made a mistake and apologized because I didn't
I mean, the
remember at
brakes
all
at 35 on that side, but
But Chuxing asked not to blame himself and promised that Master Yang Yan would remember his name.
shit, it's out of gas.
Miss Yan reminded that the elections will be over in 3 days and advised to spend this time on cultivation and break through to a new level. Moreover, Miss Yan believed that if Chuxing did not move to the spiritual level, then the elections would be very difficult for him. Chuxing thanked her for her concern, and Miss Yan said goodbye to him. 2 days passed, and before the elections, traders occupied almost all the shops in the city. Shui Qian was also here, who really liked the cookies and wanted to buy them all. The seller and baker could not resist her beauty and simply trembled, but could not sell more, because he was forbidden. But she still stood her ground and wanted to buy, no longer considering it a problem. The seller still couldn't resist, and gave her all the freshest cookies. Shui Qian gave all the cookies to her assistant, and ordered her not to eat too much because someone noticed. He followed a woman whom he saw in the crowd, and thought was Miss Yan, but did not catch up with her and lost sight of her. And Miss Yan herself at that moment had already reached Chuxing's place of residence, and met with the poisonous Yan and Lord Gu. They let her in, but Chuxing asked her to come in quickly, otherwise it was quite cold outside. She brought a bag of cakes and decided to treat Chuxing, because she considered it the best made in the city. Chuxing was depressed because of Liu Xiang and did not want to eat. And Miss Yan tried to
my God.
She was worried about it. Chuxing began to get a little annoyed and said that she shouldn't worry, and he would calmly go through the house elections. Lord Gu decided to eavesdrop on their conversation, but Yang didn't really like the idea. He had never seen Miss Yan watching over someone like that before, but Yan didn't care and simply pulled him away from the door by his ear. Chuxing suspected that Miss Yan was from the imperial family since her teacher represented the martial house. Chuxing knew that the Qin family, including her father, were huge trading junkies in the capital. But Miss Yan herself guessed that her family was somehow involved in what happened. Then this already changed everything. After the election, Miss Yan had to urgently go to the imperial city, and Chuxing asked to check on Qin Taifeng's uncle upon arrival. Chuxing looked out the window and saw Shui Qing, but he didn't care because he didn't expect that Miss Yan was the daughter of such an important person. Chuxing remembered how Miss Yan Qing Tai's uncle helped him in his previous life, so in this one, he was going to help him avoid the upcoming crisis. A day later, a lot of snow had already fallen on the street, and it was quite cold, and people in crowds had already begun to gather for the elections. Many vendors offered their goodies to the participants before the competition. Yang was somehow nervous. On the main square, take place. The flags of the 5 main fighting houses hung. The place where participants were accepted had a strict selection process.
Yo, thank you for the follow there, Foo Fighter. I appreciate you.
Level 8 body template. One of the prospective candidates has already been thrown out for being over 20 years old. Although last year the selection was up to 23. Next in line was Chuxing.
Don't I got another water bottle or a pot or something I can fucking fill?
Drummers beat their drums, which meant the opening of the elections. The host asked to greet the elders of the 5 martial houses, the first of which was Elder Gu. Then came the martial house of Ling Xiao, which was stronger than the house of Elder Gu, but for some reason it was only named second. And Chuxing noticed that Yang Yan was standing on something to appear taller, and therefore he felt funny. Then they named the other 3 representatives.
Yes.
Already equal in strength. The presenter said that the participants should line up on both sides while he explains the rules, and those those who do not make it in time will be disqualified.
Shit. I'm gonna have to drop something. I don't wanna. You know what?
Chuxing was walking to his place and heard the voice
Dismantle.
of the presenter, who was telling something.
All
when
four.
Suddenly someone called out to him, which was a little surprising for him, because he didn't know anyone here except Shui Qing. It was some kid with yellow hair.
Oh my god.
Chuxing didn't understand.
Screwdriver sitting in this fucking bag, or am I bugging?
Know each other and extended his hand.
Yeah, it's over here.
Chuxing stood there and didn't react. But Chuxing decided to shake his hand. And then the stranger said his name was Shunfeng and wanted to become Chuxing's friend. He was a very positive guy and was very affectionate towards Chuxing.
Move this shit.
He started saying something to the whole stadium that people looked at him like he was an idiot, and Chuxing didn't really want to communicate with him. But Shunfeng noticed how Chuxing was trying to sneak away and was not going to let him go so easily, because he had not yet shown Chuxing his friends. Shunfeng grabbed his hand and dragged the dissatisfied Chuxing along with him. Shunfeng along the way asked everything about Chuxing's cultivation and strength, but Chuxing didn't even understand what was happening now. Finally, Shunfeng brought Chuxing to his friends, who were a group of 2 people. The girl immediately began to scold Shunfeng for being too active and causing trouble, but then their attention turned to Chuxing, whom they seemed to know. Chuxing did not understand them, because he saw them for the first time, and Shunfeng had already managed to introduce Chuxing to his friends. He then introduced his friends, who were Suki from Darkwater.
Oh my god, I don't want to have to drop shit. I really don't. Went through all this trouble to get over here. That shit's equipped already.
It was better not to mess with Shunfeng because he was a small, irritable child. But suddenly, their entire conversation was interrupted by Shui Qing, who pushed everyone away and found her victim.
Alright, something's getting dropped because I'm not doing this.
Decided to get to the bottom of it, citing cheating with her sister. But she did it in vain because Chuxing didn't even want to remember about that incident.
It's getting late.
Chuxing asked Shui Qing with strong hatred.
Oh, I'm gonna have to run back to where I was.
But Chuxing immediately calmed down because he understood that she should not have found out anything about Liu Xiang, and it was not profitable to start a fight now since he would later be disqualified. Shui Qing started to say something about his spiritual level.
I swear to God, I cannot. How do I siphon gas out this bitch?
Shui Qing was sure that Chuxing was deliberately making noise in the city of Shifen in order to distract her from She continued to call Chuxing names and call him a pathetic piece of trash who doesn't deserve to stand in the election. She promised to show the true strength and smash him if Chuxing met her on the back.
Actually, hold on.
But Chuxing, with some anger and emptiness inside, did not answer her, to which she was a little surprised, but did not decide to take it seriously. She promised to show him goodbye that Chuxing was just
I need to... Alright, let's put these here.
New friends knew her, and they also knew about her high level of martial arts.
Let's put this here too.
She behaved so arrogantly.
Alright, I got space now.
Chuxing and Shui Qian had something in common, and Lu Qi asked why he had offended her. Chuxing
Yeah.
were trifles, but Shunfeng decided to make his own amendments and told everything he knew about their connections, including the marriage agreement. He also said that Chuxing chose his second sister Liu Xiang as his wife, which greatly humiliated Shui Qing, and also became strong and subjugated the entire Shifen. The guys couldn't believe that it was the same Chuxing, but the main character himself asked them to keep their mouths shut. The first round began, and the host explained the rules of the shields, which show the applicant's talent and fighting spirit.
Oh, it's on this side?
To advance to the next stage, had to score 5 points out of 9 possible. He also pointed to the signs with their numbers and asked them not to lose, because the second round will be associated with them. The competition began, and the host asked participants with numbers from 1 to 10 to come up on stage. But it turned out that none of them passed the first task, and then the presenter asked the second 10 people to go on stage. Miss Yan did not understand why this test was so difficult, and asked Master Yan Yan about this. But Yang Yan said that the compatibility of his fighting spirit and his talent is the main indicator of his ability and potential. Therefore,
Come on, yo.
the higher the morale, the more stones could be lit according to Yang Yan's logic. Everyone thought like Yang Yan, but in fact it was the compatibility of talent and fighting spirit as a warrior's personal indicator. The first contender from Chuxing's group, Ling Chuan, with a third-grade fighting spirit appeared. Therefore, the higher the compatibility and understanding, the stronger the person's fighting spirit abilities. Miss Yan understood this in such a way that if a person has a high level of spirit and he understands
Why can I not...
then much more stones.
Open window locks,
Soon Chun
vehicle
Feng came out,
maintenance.
who had level 4
Why
fighting
can't I
spirit
put
and lived
fucking
in
fuel in
Then
here? Am I doing
the CEO
something
appeared
wrong?
behind him. She had a
Wait a minute, hold
4K
on.
fighting spirit, and she gained 6 stones.
Primary.
The people began to bless the genius of the city of dark water, and her friends praised her for such a good result. But Shui Qing laughed at her arrogantly and said that no one can call level 6 the best. She believed that she was much stronger than her, and therefore humiliated her for such a level, which was higher than that of many people. The next one was just called Shui Qian, who promised Chu Xing to show the highest level. Suddenly, the audience, upon seeing Shui Qing, immediately began to discuss her, but the presenter asked for silence. Shui Qing placed her hand on the shield, which first revealed her level 4 martial spirit called Martial Spiritual
What?
Focus. She
Smash
instantly
window
collected 7
maintenance.
spiritual stones, surprising all the
Close
spectators.
trunk.
The presenter himself was shocked by such a high level, because she only had level 4 fighting spirit, but she had good talent that the fighting houses needed. Representatives of the fighting houses noticed how the spectators rejoiced and made notes for themselves. Yang Yan was already thinking about how to recruit her to his martial house, but Miss Yan expressed her thought, which was disgust for this girl. But suddenly, he was interrupted by Elder Gu, who already knew that Shui Qian would go to his martial house. Shui Qing walked to the stage with a proud air while everyone praised her, and Shun Fang no longer liked her, and he called her the devil. She walked near Chu Xing and boasted to him, but it was not clear why
Low
she did
condition
this.
gas tanks have less container.
He asked her
Yeah, I know. Why can I not fill this fucking tank up with gas?
and it was pointless to know who was the best. Shui Qing asked Chu Xing where he was in line, because she really wanted to enjoy his failure. But it was at this moment that the examiner called numbers 61 to 70, which included Chu Xing. Chu Xing noticed that these sensors are for people with low morale and talent, which made Chu Xing a little confused. Everyone put their hands to the sensors, and first, they had to show the candidate's fighting spirit. Shui Qing was all about laughing and satisfying her arrogance, and Miss Yan was really worried about him. Chu Xing put his hand, and the apparatus showed a first-class martial spirit called Zomboid. Miss Yan suspected a problem with the tester, and everyone else present simply laughed, and Shui Qing was sure that Chu Xing would not like even 1 stone. But instead of 0 stones, the device went crazy and lit all
Putting
the
Trump.
stones first. And
There we go. I was wondering how to do that earlier.
Next
Jesus.
which the audience definitely did not expect. Chu Xing's level was above level 9, and Shui Qian immediately turned into a sullen and irritated person who had never seen anything like it.
Oh, it's empty.
The remaining elders of the martial houses realized that his compatibility meant a very high and amazing talent, and Miss Yan began to shake her head with joy, who believed that Chu Xing was a truly unique person. But the presenter didn't like this, because Chu Xing broke an expensive device. Meanwhile, Miss Yan hurried Master Yan to talk to Chu Xing. The presenter asked to pay 10 times the amount for the shield, and also added that Chu Xing cheated, but Chu Xing denied everything. But the host didn't believe him and threatened him with disqualification, and asked him to be careful next time. Many eyes immediately fell on this whole situation, but the host asked everyone to turn away, and Chu Xing pushed the host away and promised to pay. Chu Xing walked back from the stage while Shun Fang shouted towards him that Chu Xing was incredible. Everyone was simply amazed by his performance, and Lu Qi could not even call herself a genius in his presence. Other candidates began to arrive who wanted to look at the master whom the tester could not evaluate. All her fans immediately left Shui Qing, and she
There
was
we
left
go.
without attention, which annoyed her
Jesus.
greatly. But suddenly a man in a black robe from the Yin Meng martial house appeared behind her and said that Elder Gu wanted to see her. At first, Shui Qian was scared because Assistant Gu took her to some strange place, but Elder Gu was already standing there waiting for her. The Elder was furious because he did not understand why Chu Xing was so strong. If, according to Shui Qian, he could not cultivate even after using a bunch of herbs. He thought that she was lying to him, but Shui Qing claimed that Chu Xing had a tempering level of 2 a year ago. But Shui Qian's words did not conceive anything, because the talent that Chu Xing possessed had already attracted the rest of the martial houses. But the Elder did his part, and in the next round he bribed the judge to eliminate Chu Xing. In this case, Shui Qin offered herself as a rival to deal with Chu Xing, but Elder Gu asked not to talk nonsense, because at the moment it was still not clear what abilities Chu Xing had. The first stage ended, and the presenter announced that out of 300 people, only 54 people passed. He asked the remaining participants to keep the signs and rest for the upcoming battles in the afternoon. Shun Feng invited Chu Xing to have lunch with them, but Chu Xing refused because there were people waiting for him. Chu Xing met with the poisonous Yang and Lord Gu, who praised him all the way while they were looking for the restaurant. And at this time, in one of the restaurants, Master Yang Yan and Miss Yan were already starting to have lunch. But just at this time, Chu Xing entered the restaurant, who took a table outside, and Miss Yan, noticing this, wanted to call him. But the master stopped him. Yang Yan just didn't want to see him because he thought he was arrogant and cocky. And he also believed that if he took him to the martial house right now, Chu Xing would become even more arrogant. He continued smoking his pipe, and Miss Yan was worried that another martial house might take him away. But Yang Yan said that the rest of the elders were elderly and would not immediately rush to recruit him. Moreover, thanks to Miss Yan's stories, only he knew about Chu Xing's true abilities, so if he was disgraced, they could easily take him away. The presenter announced the rules of Stage 2, in which the lot will be drawn for one-on-one battles, and if you lose, there will be an automatic departure from the stage. The elders will look at the skills demonstrated by the candidates. Also, the more fights a person has, the greater his chance of getting into the fighting house. The presenter took out the first 2 participants, among whom was Shun Feng, and according to the rules, it was possible to use weapons.
So the school has been vacated.
Before leaving, Lu Qi told him that if he lost, he would ultimately forget his name.
Okay, that's plenty of gas to get somewhere.
He started a fight, and he immediately rushed at Fen, who managed to dodge. But the fighter with the saber was not going to stop.
Alright, so I'm good right now. Okay, shit.
He began to put pressure on Fen's psyche, telling him to go home and not even try to do something to such a weak person. But this only angered Shun Feng, who concentrated on his blows and took his opponent by surprise. After this, the host declared Shun Feng the winner, and his friends praised him, except for Chu Xing, who stood with a straight face.
Alright, don't I got food on me?
Who didn't expect to be called so quickly. People were horrified, just like Chu Xing when they saw the physique of Chu Xing.
Feeling peckish, huh? We'll knock out 2 potatoes. 1 potato, 2 potato. Oh, I can't eat them all. Pokemon.
Was a little worried because he didn't understand the character of this giant, who for some reason began to hold Chu Xing's hand. But after the host announced the start of the battle, he immediately activated his power and tried to slam Chu Xing into the floor. Chu Xing fell and immediately saw his spiritual weapon, which he was about to hit him with. But Chu Xing rose to his feet in an instant and took out his sword for defense. But Joe could not stop and continued to attack Chu Xing with powerful and fast blows for such a giant. He was even able to wound Chu Xing right in the face, but he stopped his attacks, giving him time to breathe. Joe was surprised at how agile Chu Xing was, but his luck couldn't last that long. The spectators were confident that Joe would win because his punches were too faster and stronger.
Lumberyard, but I need an axe.
Shun Feng understood that Chu Xing would not be able to defeat him with speed alone, because judging by it alone, Joe was not lagging behind Chu Xing. But Chu Xing on the battlefield decided to imitate Joe by saying that his luck would run out right now.
I gotta find a good place with the 2nd floor so I can start packing up my shit and moving it.
With a fierce and powerful attack and broke the floor of the ring. But Chu
Really do.
dodged, but he was not going to give up and continued to attack Chu Xing with the same force. But Chu Xing just waited until he made
Yeah, that house situation gotta change.
strong blow. This was one of Chu Xing's hidden techniques, which was called the shadowless sword technique and was used by him before. Chu Xing was not going to wait for the big man to get tired, but was only trying to determine his rhythm of attacks. And during the attack, Chu Xing accidentally tore his underpants, which greatly embarrassed Zhu. After that, he ran away from the wall, humiliated, while the audience whistled. Chu Xing's new friends were simply delighted with his skill, and did not understand how high the level must be to defeat Zhou with one attack. They tried to celebrate this with a joint hug, but Chu Xing put out his arms and simply pushed everyone.
I don't even know where spot to check to first. I know these 2-story houses is pretty decent, but there's a lot of trouble down here.
Previously, even before the start of the battle, he negotiated with him, and depending on success.
Alright, if I get down here, it looks clear, then I'm gonna pull in, I'm checking. If not,
But after Elder Gu found out that she had never
actually, I'm pulling in here and getting some sleep.
putting her against Chu Xing in the first battle. He couldn't believe how reckless Shui Qing was to go to battle. Shui Qing, Everyone supported Shui Qing, According to the results of the first day, only 15 winners emerged, and tomorrow the final battles will take place, following which 5 winners will be brought to the fighting houses. And also each winner will receive spiritual stones and residences within the walls of the Imperial House. Chu Xing was already leaving with his assistants when suddenly Shun Feng followed him. He didn't expect Chu Xing to run away so quickly, because he hoped that he would have dinner with them. But when Feng saw Chu Xing's friends who were ready to kill with one look, he changed his mind about begging him. But Feng overcame himself and invited them all to dinner. And he also saw the guard Chu, who looked like a lord. Chu Xing went to the hotel, but for now he left Feng with Yang, who immediately got to the bottom of him. Shun Feng began to make excuses by saying that he met Chu Xing during the elections, and that is why he went with him all the time. But Yang menacingly told him that now he was Chu Xing's rival, and if he did something strange, Yang would finish him off. But still, they had dinner together at Chu Xing's expense and went home. Shun Feng and Ling Chuan were surprised that Chu Xing had such high-ranking and powerful servants. And Lu Qi, for some reason, admired Lord Gu. They began to think who Chu Xing could really be, because they thought that the strongest in Shifen City was Patriarch Shui. They suspected that Chu Xing was simply hiding his strength, and Lu Qi called Chu Xing incredible. They thought that they would be the strongest in this place, but they were deeply mistaken. And Shun Feng was generally afraid to meet Chu Xing in the ring, unlike Lu Qi, who dreamed about it. The next day, all bans were lifted, and the loser will officially be considered the one who admits defeat. Suddenly, some girl appeared near Lord Gu and asked to be on his shoulders because she didn't see anything. On this day, another strong contender appeared at number 150, Li Jiangfei. This was the strongest of the candidates, who had already reached the first spiritual level and had the fighting spirit of Black Gold, and had never lost, especially disinfecting opponents. Another of the strongest candidates was Long Zhu from Haidong Province, and possessed an unknown weapon. But the end came for Ling Chuang, who was defeated by Ling Xuan, and possessed the rare fighting spirit of the Mirror Moonflower, and was already trained in the martial house of Ling Xiao. Besides Chu Xing and Shui Qing, they were the strongest because they also lit 6 spiritual stones, Shun Feng said, while Lu Qi was furious when she saw that Lin Chuan had lost. Shun Feng began to talk about her weaknesses and also talk about other rivals. But Chu Xing did not understand why all this, since he still remains his rival.
Come on, what's in here?
Feng only wanted to make friends, and therefore considered it important to share resources and information with friends. But Chu Xing did not care about others. But Chu Xing didn't care about other people, and didn't want to share anything with him. But Shun Feng decided to prove that knowledge about the enemy is a very important thing on the battlefield, because it will help in finding weak points. But Lu Qi stopped Shun Feng, who was already tired of him, and at this time they called Chu Xing against Shun Feng, who clearly didn't expect it and was most afraid of it and didn't want to fight it. Chu Xing was cold and simply drew his weapon to fight. But Shun Feng could not do that and just wanted to give up. People immediately began to ridicule him, and his friends felt ashamed of him. Then Chu Xing already felt a little sorry for him. Chu Xing decided to approach him and calm him down. He asked him to present this battle to Shun Feng as a normal training session. Shun Feng believed Chu Xing and was ready for battle, and Chu Xing gave him a chance for 3 unanswered attacks. The first attack was one of the strongest, but Chu Xing easily dodged. The second and third were similar, but also didn't even touch Chu Xing. Therefore, Chu Xing kept his words, and immediately after the third attack, the counter attacked him and broke Shun Feng's blades. After the battle, Shun Feng ran after Chu Xing and continued to admire him, and Chu Xing promised to pay double the value of his blades. Next was a truly interesting battle between Shui Qian and Lu Qi. Shui Qian began to show her arrogance again and did not want to fight with a weakling. And Lu Qi immediately recognized this woman who called herself the best and decided to personally verify this. But Shui Qian did not understand her because this was a test that revealed the best. Lu Qi understood that she couldn't be tricked and asked why she was in such a hurry to end the battle. But she asked not to talk nonsense and not to get in her way. Otherwise, what will happen to Chu Xing will happen to him. Lu Qi used one of her techniques, many sword butterflies that flew in all directions, but Shui Qian successfully dodged absolutely every attack. Then Shui Qian began to counterattack, and Lu Qi, who did not expect this, used her butterfly shield. Shui Qian couldn't break through the shield, so she used the blue water technique, which she had been relying on all this time. The water that was used in the technique easily slipped through Lu Qi's butterfly shield, and she easily reached Lu Qi, who was already on guard before the terrible pain and covered herself with her hands. But when she came down from the stage, she was very angry. While Shun Feng was telling her where she got this technique from, Liu Qi was already at the limit of her rage. Liu Qi was furious with the old man who sold her this book and dreamed of meeting him to settle accounts. But Chu Xing stood behind and considered himself a man.
Shit.
The next battle was Chu Xing with Zhang Fei, who possessed a composite bow that could be disassembled into two parts. He went to the battlefield and told Long Zhu to watch for his signs. Zhang Fei entered the ring and greeted Chu Xing, and was very happy to meet such a unique person. He didn't understand why he hadn't heard of it before, or never seen it. But when Chu Xing decided to say that he was just an empty place, Zhang Fei, who admired him, suddenly confirmed his thought. Then Chu Xing immediately realized that Zhang Fei had activated his fighting spirit and took out a weapon. But Zhang Fei was confident of his victory, because not one student could fight with him on equal terms. He dealt the first blow, which Chu Xing immediately blocked, and Zhang Fei, whom he missed all the time, began to truly have fun. Chu Xingen could respond with a counterattack, and Zhang thought that this was all Chu Xing was capable of. But Chu Xing didn't think so, and at one moment he avoided his attack and was about to stab him in the back. Jiang managed to put a block and was surprised that during his intense attacks, he managed to go on the attack. But his true goal was to inject poison into the skin of Chu Xing, who had already begun to feel it because of the cod in his hands. Jian began to attack and then used poison, which breaks the connection between the fighter and the weapon. But Chu Xing was quite strong, even without a weapon, and was able to guess the moment to attack again, which he already performed without a weapon, but with just a kick. Meanwhile, Chu Xing was able to activate his power again and take up his weapon. Jian could not understand what was happening, because he was sure that he had reached Chu Xing, but nothing changed in his attacks. And during the next attack, Chu Xing just reminded him of his ability, which did not work this time. But unfortunately for Jian, this tactic only worked on people with limited control abilities. But suddenly, some kind of needle flew into Chu Xing, which Jian noticed. Chu Xing immediately sat down, leaning on the sword, and saw the shooter, but did not understand who it was. Chu Xing's new friends did not understand what had happened, as did Miss Yan, who together with the master did not understand anything. And Elder Gu sat and was pleased. Chu Xing stood with all his strength, because the hit was too close to his head. The presenter wanted to declare John's victory, but Chu Xing could barely stand, and then John ordered the fat man to close his mouth. John understood that this was an unfair fight, and tried to help Chu Xing, but Chu Xing took advantage of this opportunity and was able to strike. Then John was not going to hold back and began to attack Chu Xing, and in the end, Chu Xing won, although John apparently succumbed. Jian shook his hand and said that his partner would be waiting for him 20 steps from the ring, and he gave Chu Xing an answer in his hand, which he asked him to take in order to return to normal in 10 minutes. Chu Xing staggered up the steps and stumbled, falling on Lin Chuan, who managed to catch him. Chu Xing threw the package with the antidote to Shun Feng, and Ling Chuan realized that Chu Xing was poisoned. But at that moment, Jian came, who was very angry and pushed all his friends away. Poisonous Yang realized that Master Chu Xing was poisoned by a rather dangerous poison. At this time, Miss Yan tried to convey to her master that someone was trying to kill Master Chu Xing. Miss Yan did not understand why the elders ignored this insult, but for Yang Yan, it was not surprising, because many could not tolerate it. Li Jian knew a lot, but did not expect this to happen at this moment, so no one intervened. Miss Yan was upset because she wanted to achieve justice, but Master Yan asked her not to and to go with him. Miss Yan thought that they were going to Chuxing, but Master Yang Yan led her to the place where the shooting came from.
Not the.
He said that this was an ideal place for an attack, because there were no obstacles from above. Yang Yan tried to get to the bottom of the truth, because he didn't really understand who could have gotten her during the battle, but he had assumptions. Many spectators were discussing the fight between Chuxing and Zhang at that moment.
Alright, I need to start marking houses that are already set up for safe.
The audience looked at him very strangely, and he noticed it too and began to snap. A little later, Lucia approached Jian, to whom he immediately began to swear because she did not wait for his signal. But Lucia was sure that she did everything right, because Chuxing surprised Jian and almost won, and so she took measures. But Jian began to make excuses and said that Chuxing simply took an advantageous position. But Lucia was sure that the person who fought against him was dangerous and should not relax. Lucia knew that now he would not get to his beloved martial house, but she knew that he still had a task left, assigned by an unknown gentleman. But Jian was only upset because he really wanted to go to Ling Xiao's martial house. Jian decided to drag Chuxing into
Let's
trouble
see.
so that at his expense he could get into
That's
Ling
the
Xiao's
house,
zone.
but I need to find me a better one.
Recovered a little by this time and understood what they shot at him with. Yang demanded Chuxing to remain quiet for now, but suddenly his friends burst into the room who did not decide to go further because they saw an angry Yang. Yang walked up to Lord Gu and yelled at him because he couldn't even stop the children who were disturbing Master Chu's peace. But Chuxing had already rested enough and asked to let them in. Xunfang and Lu Qi immediately rushed in with questions about his condition and rushed to him. But Chuxing stopped them once again. Lin Chuan asked Chuxing about the poison in the killer who carried out the attacks. But Chuxing was not going to waste time on this, because the poison was already paralyzing. Lu Qi immediately put all the blame on Shui Qian. But Chuxing was confident that his sworn enemy would not do such excessive stupidity. Lin Chuan also agreed with Chuxing's version, because it made no sense for a person who must fight Chuxing in the finals to weaken him. Then Xunfeng came out into the open and suspected Long Zhu, who knew about the poisons and was friends with Jian.
I'll be back.
But Chuxing asked to forget about this incident. As a result, after some more time, the presenter announced that the 6 best participants would be randomly selected for the final battles. As expected, the final round was staged as a fight between Chuxing and Shui Qian. Many people said that Chuxing was poisoned, but his friends assured everyone that this was completely untrue. And also, Xunfeng was confident that Chuxing would win and was ready to argue with the rich spectators who did not believe him. Meanwhile, Shui Qian and Chuxing had already entered the battlefield, where Shui Qian blindly dreamed of putting an end to everything, and Chuxing decided to make fun of him and not use his sword for honesty. Shui Qian was furious with Chuxing's arrogance and attitude towards her. And after these words, she immediately struck a blow from the sea wind, which Chuxing dodged without any problems. Then came the second blow, which Chuxing also dodged, and Shui Qian did not expect him to be so fast. Shui Qian began to get angry, and her strikes became more clumsy, and Chuxing expected great things from her technique. Chuxing thought that she was just warming up, but Shui Qian was already visibly starting to get nervous. Chuxing was not going to continue the fight if she continued to throw such weak blows. Then Shui Qian cultivated, and she asked to stop reproaching her, but she still couldn't even hurt Chuxing with her blows. From the outside, it seemed as if Chuxing was falling asleep from boredom, and Shui Qian had become much weaker. Some candidates thought that Shui Qian fought so weakly on purpose, but suddenly their conversations were interrupted by Ling Shuang, who was dissatisfied with them. Shui Qian had already used such stupid attacks that she couldn't even hit Chuxing. But Chuxing decided to deliberately miss one blow and say that he could not seriously fight with the girl. Chuxing didn't want to humiliate her and asked her to practice the 9-wave technique better. Chuxing was reluctant to admit defeat because he did not want to spoil her reputation, which was very dear to her. But for Shui Qian, this was the last straw, and she simply lost her temper and ordered him to stop. She was no longer going to feel sorry for him and used one of her most powerful techniques, which Chuxing was so looking forward to seeing. It was the 9 blue wave technique that had the most powerful big wave hit. Thanks to her, Shui Qian managed to drive Chuxing underwater and try to strike again. It was the Dragon Lake's tiger attack that almost broke the stage, but not Chuxing, who was standing in the same place. Chuxing began to move towards her with a malicious smile, but she did not understand why nothing was working. Therefore, Shui Qian had no choice but to release all his power and use the final blow. From this blow, A wave passed from the ring to the candidates and spectators, which was simply washed away. Miss Yan was afraid for Chu Xing and decided to help her.
Oh, shit.
But her master Yang Yan stopped her and asked her not to interfere. But Miss Yan couldn't leave it like that. But Yang Yan assured that this was still a normal battle, and the committee staff would take care of the crowd that was underwater. They realized that there was too much water and pushed the ring away from the audience until someone gave up. Chu Xing's friends were also washed away, but they were saved by Lord Gu and the poisonous Yang, who were the first to come to the rescue after the committee staff. They were not on a bubble, but on a special spiritual shrimp, and saw all the battles from above, where Chu Xing stood in a water ball and calmly resisted Shui Qian's attack, although he had not yet reached the spiritual level. Chu Xing was not only able to withstand each of Shui Qian's attacks, but he also managed to prevent destruction, and Shui Qian noticed that the movements that Chu Xing used completely copied her technique. She decided not to give up, but when a powerful energy beam flew at her, the desire to fight immediately disappeared. Due to the powerful attack, Shui Qian completely lost not only control, but also her clothes. And Chu Xing seemed to get out of the water dry and looked at his defeated enemy, who at that moment lost his arrogance. Lu Qi and Long Chuan couldn't understand how Chu Xing won so easily, and Miss Yan realized that Chu Xing was using spiritual pressure to break through the spiritual cultivation level. Elder Gu was furious because Chu Xing's abilities were beyond the earthly level, so Shui Qian had no chance of winning. Shui Qian covered herself as best she could and was very upset, because she considered it an unfair battle, because she thought that she worked more. Chu Xing, although he hated her, decided to show tolerance and covered her with his cape. She saw it and didn't understand why he was showing mercy. She said that she would not forgive Chu Xing, although it was not clear what Chu Xing was to blame for. But Chu Xing did not want to argue with her and simply left, and Shui Qian continued to cry. Some house elders were already planning to promote the guys to main disciples, since they were stronger than ordinary students of the martial house. Many elders thought in advance that Chu Xing would already go to Ling Xiao's house, but Yang Yan didn't think so. While everyone was discussing something, Elder Gu decided to use his opportunity about the right of time elder, since he did not agree with the results. Elder Gu came on stage and thought that the performance was dishonest. He decided to personally search Chu Xing on behalf of the elder, as he believed that Chu Xing was using high-level weapons. Lord Gu drew his sword, but Yang understood the strength of Elder Gu and asked him to calm down, and Miss Yan did not understand why Yang Yan did not intervene. Chu Xing refused Elder Gu because according to this logic, he should have searched all the other winners. Chu Xing suggested improving the election system, but Elder Gu did not listen to him and said that Chu Xing did not have the opportunity to refuse verification. He used his spirit beast and Chu Xing found himself bound in chains. It was some kind of mythical purple animal with chains coming from him. Elder Gu said that Chu Xing and any participant in the selection have no right to influence the competition. Elder Gu never showed mercy to arrogant people, but Chu Xing asked him not to pretend his intentions. Chu Xing expressed the whole plan to Elder Gu, and also added that he did not expect how strong Chu Xing would be, and therefore decided to fix everything himself. Elder Chu admitted that at first he just wanted to make fun of him and the Shui family, but when the elder saw the strength that did not correspond to the capabilities, he changed his plans. Therefore, Elder Gu decided to deal with Chu Xing himself and found a talisman from him, which Liu Xian gave to Chu Xing. The viewer did not understand what was happening on stage and suspected that Chu Xing was really cheating since the elder of the house, Yan Meng, decided to check him. The spectators knew that every year someone would cheat, so this was not the first time for them, but they also noticed Shui Qian, who was without clothes. And Elder Gu looked at Chu Xing's talisman and thought that it was some kind of mythical weapon. Shun Feng heard this and became furious. Miss Yan began to worry about Chu Xing, and the defeated Shui Qian, although she hated Chu Xing, did not agree with Gu. But Chu Xing began to get a little irritated, and at first, as usual, asked to return the talisman. But Elder Gu did not want to give it away, because he believed that it would be important evidence. But at that very second, Elder Gu was left without the finger in which he was holding Chu Xing's talisman, and Chu Xing himself had already risen to his feet. This was Chu Xing's sword, which he decided to keep and did not use during the battle with Shui Qian. The elder, on the contrary, was glad about this turn of events, because he knew what the consequences would be for attacks on the elder. He decided to increase the pressure of the chains and teach a lesson to Chu Xing, who decided to go against the authorities. He believed that everyone should bow before authority and not show arrogance towards the strongest. Then he began to threaten that he would destroy Chu Xing. But before Elder Chu came close to Chu Xing, he was able to block using no-hand control. Chu Xing could control the sword with a small movement of his hands, and Elder Chu wanted him to bow his head to his bullshit power. But Chu Xing at this time was already able to break Master Chu's hiding technique, and then create a powerful energy field to destroy the remnants of the channels. But Chu Xing's strength was exhausted for this, and he fell to his knees and spent too much spiritual energy. Elder Gu decided not to waste the moment and used his hiding technique again, and did not even expect that Chu Xing actually had good challenge. But he did not want to spare Chu Xing since he was challenging the heavyweight. He was already furious and began to taste the humiliation, enclosing Chu Xing in a complete cocoon.
Somebody stabbed homeboy with a bread knife.
Yang Yan appeared on his spiritual beast, who asked to stop torturing Chu Xing. He asked Elder Gu to step aside and let the committee deal with it and then make a decision. And in case of refusal, everyone will remember Elder Gu from the Yanmeng martial house as a person who is jealous of talents. Meanwhile, Xun Feng secretly decided to use his energy to help Chu Xing. It was Xun Feng's Guardian Star ability that gave a second chance to a warrior, which Chu Xing took advantage of. And Elder Gu began to understand that Chu Xing was beginning to absorb his spiritual energy. A powerful whirlpool of energy was formed, in which Elder Gu fell, and Yang Yan flew to the side. And Shui Qian began to worry and began to ask Elder Yang to do something. Then it immediately became clear to both Poisonous Yang and Yang Yan what kind of martial art Chu Xing used. This was the only spiritual pressure that could shock any master regardless of their cultivation. It was called the Hawk Spirit, which only a very small number of warriors could use. The next day, everyone looked at Shui Qian with contempt, who now looked like a drowned rat. And Shui Qian at this time recalled the words of Chu Xing, who then said that he was a mysterious old man who sold her the movement in new ways. She was very surprised, but Chu Xing said that there were shortcomings in her technique and asked her not to throw away the book. But these words only irritated Shui Qian more. She burst into tears again and simply ran away. It wasn't easy for her assistant either, because she endured all this, and remembered that the last time Shui Qian was hysterical, also because of Mr. Chu Xing. Shui Qian's hysteria made her behave very strangely, and she was upset that Chu Xing left. And then she got sick and almost forgot about everything. People at this time were discussing Chu Xing's victory over Elder Gu, who was demoted to the earthly level. Suddenly, the gossipers were distracted by some man who said that 3 elders from the weakest houses had arrived. People thought that they wanted to recruit Chu Xing into their martial house, but it was strange that they were all sewing together when this could not be the case. They tried to figure out among themselves who was better at lobbying, but it turned out that almost none of them could handle it. Therefore, Elder Mo simply asked to buy him a drink to be sure, because he agreed to go to Chu Xing. At the entrance to Chu Xing, he noticed the Poisonous Yang, but decided to pretend he simply did not see him pass. But Yang stopped him and wanted to drive him away with a menacing force, because Master Chu Xing was sleeping now and did not want to see anyone. After his persuasion, he break through and did not let him do it. Then the elder of the martial house decided to simply ask Yang to report his visit to Chu Xing. Then the elder decided to ask why Yang called him a master if he was stronger than Chu Xing in terms of observation. But suddenly, Yang Yan appeared, who asked not to bother the Poisonous Yang, and said that Chu Xing had already joined Ling Xiao's house. Just 15
Oh,
days
they
ago,
didn't even
Ling
notice
Xiao
me?
asked him to hurry up.
Oh, let's
But Yang Yan
go.
did the smart thing, and using invisibility, decided to get to Chu Xing. Yang Yan didn't
Hey, that
understand
boy
Chu
the
Xing hadn't gone outside
beanies.
for a long time, and didn't let anyone in.
I thought he would have
The
something
thoughts
on him.
that Chu Xing was cultivating with him immediately disappeared when he saw that he was just sleeping. Chu Xing immediately saw and called out to Yang Yan, although he was wearing a disguise, which surprised him a little. But Chu Xing admitted that there were hidden formations on the roof and outside the window, thanks to which Chu Xing noticed him and asked him to leave because he wanted to sleep. But Yang Yan could not tolerate such ignoring in his direction, because the public invitation to Ling Xiao's house was ignored a couple of days ago. He angrily approached Chu Xing and said that he would not have come to him in person, not for Miss Yang, but realized that he had gone alone. Chu Xing sneezed right in the face of Yang Yan, who now understood why Chu Xing did not want to sneeze. Chu Xing just caught a cold and asked Yang Yan not to come in, because unlike normal people, he braved breaks into his window. But Yan couldn't believe that Chuxing chooses Jia Lan's house instead of the elite Ling Xiao. But Chuxing argued that Ling Xiao's house had too strict rules. But Yang Yan asked to state Chuxing's demands in order to satisfy them if possible due to his status. But in response to Chuxing's requests to become the main disciple, Yang Yan could not understand why Chuxing could not have more normal requests that he could at least fulfill. In Ling Xiao's martial house, there were 4 grades from preliminary to basic, which were obtained through internal exams that very few people passed. Chuxing realized that he could not agree to this demand unlike other houses, so he went on to sleep. Chuxing did not understand what Yang Yan wanted from him, who had already made Chuxing's head ache with his walking around the room. Yang Yan still decided to make exceptions and accept him as a main disciple, but no more. He took out his staff, with which he accepted students into Ling Xiao's house.
1, 2, buckle my shoe. Stay dead, fuckers.
And now, on behalf of Elder Yan, Chuxing becomes the 9th core disciple of the 54th generation of the martial house of Ling Xiao, and now bears the honor and greatness of the martial house.
Shit off.
He handed him his main disciple sign, and it was not necessary to follow all the rules. But the main thing was that Chuxing did not violate the prohibitions. Chuxing accepted the tablet that gave him the opportunities and privileges of a master disciple. Yang Yan understood that Chuxing was sick, but he wanted to hear from him recognition as his master. Yang Yan was glad that he took such a talented student into his home. But Chuxing no longer wanted to see him, and just wanted to rest. He also gave Chuxing 5 days to heal and solve personal problems before coming to the martial house, and also said that Miss Yan would stay with him if anything happened. He also warned that some students would bully him
Briefcase
because
on the
of
floor,
expulsion,
belt.
but asked him to be restrained. A little later in the evening, Lord Gu went to the most expensive restaurant in the city of Dark Waters. He asked for the best wine and the best food, because today was his holiday. One of the waiters asked what could make Lord Gu so happy, but he immediately replied that he was celebrating Chuxing's victory. Lord Gu also reported that Yang Yan accepted Chuxing into the Ling Xiao marshal today and gave him the Master Disciple plaque. One of the other waiters was surprised that Chuxing was called that way, but Lord Gu thought it was a little strange. Lord Gu then asked if there were still famous people with the surname Chu here. Then he said that Elder Jia would be dissatisfied with Chuxing, but Lord Gu said that he was just blind and did not see Chuxing's true talent, and their house was only beautiful in appearance. Suddenly, Lord Gu was called out by some man who was his old acquaintance. It turned out to be a very good friend of Lord Gu named Wang, who had gained weight again. Wang thought that it was he who taught Chuxing everything and asked to train the same talents for him. Lord Chu was a little embarrassed and said that she could not provide such a service. Wang suggested inviting Chuxing to celebrate, but Lord Gu immediately stated that Chuxing was not feeling well right now. Elder Mo was also in this establishment and drank too much, so he was very angry with Yang, who he wanted to find. Mo was very drunk and unhappy, both with the poisonous Yang and Chuxing, who was too proud, but the other elders tried to calm him down. He remembered how Elder Yan Yan laughed at him because of his lack of flexibility, and generally tried to remember everything, and whined about everything. But one of the elders quickly calmed him down with a kick, and together they went to the hotel in a quiet atmosphere. They dragged Elder Mo to the hotel,
toothbrush,
and one of the elders decided to shave off his beard because Mo spoke badly about it, and he remembered it.
Let's fill that water bottle.
He went outside and climbed a building where an unknown but apparently very strong and influential man was waiting.
We're gonna pop this
He said that he
open.
could not find out who Chuxing was because there was good security there, and it was already too late since he was accepted into Ling Xiao's martial house. The unknown Raven Lord spoke in quotes while the elder listened attentively. Chuxing was spinning his core disciple keychain, which he managed to get from Yang Yan, but suddenly he was interrupted by the poisonous Yang in the middle of the night. He brought him some food, which was very tasty, and Chuxing asked about Lord Gu, whom he had not seen this evening. Chuxing was wondering why he didn't go with him, because Chuxing could easily defend himself. But then Chuxing found a clue that Yang did not knock, and then Chuxing realized that something was wrong here. After these words, the poisonous Yang, as if hypnotized, attacked Chuxing, breaking the dining table. Chuxing didn't understand what was happening because it was not a disguise, but the real shell of poisonous Yang. But Chuxing looked into his eyes and realized that someone was controlling him. Chuxing managed to pierce his palm during his attack, but Yang didn't seem to care about the injury. Chuxing asked him to wake up, but ordinary words did not help change the situation. Then Chuxing decided to use the only way out when he was overtaken by surprise and hit him with his head before he managed to strike him in the shoulder. Yang's hat flew off, and Chuxing noticed the sign of the Tai family, the assassin organization of the true spiritual continent. A couple of minutes after Chuxing knocked out Yang, he woke up and was already back to normal, and at first did not understand what was happening. Yang began
Close
to
that
grasp
curtain.
his gun,
Let's close
and
all
Chuxing
these
asked if
shits.
he remembered at least something. Poisonous Yang immediately knelt down and began to apologize and asked for the heaviest punishment for his offense. Chuxing asked him not to be so nervous, because it was just a scratch, and also he was not going to punish him, because he was under someone's control. But Ian continued to say that he was guilty and said that at first he doubted him. Yang said that he did not understand Master Chu, because he was very young and mysterious, and so he tried to reveal his secret and kill him. Chuxing was glad that he admitted it himself, because he had already understood this a long time ago from the sign on his Panama hat, and decided to spare him and even reward him for the right choice. Chuxing told him about 3 needles, 2 of which he used in the battle with Elder Chu, but he kept one either to kill Yang or give it to him. Chuxing gave him this needle and asked that no one including him, and he did not bother him for 2 days. Chuxing remembered that the Tai family was a very ancient organization that became independent and accepted assassination orders, but they usually took on very complex and difficult tasks. Chuxing did
Do I
not
really not
understand
have
why
it?
they
Damn,
had
I should
their
took one from the other
because he had
house.
just reached the spiritual level. Even stranger for Chuxing was that Shunfeng helped him by giving him some of the energy to defeat Elder Chu. If not for him, then Chuxing would hardly have been able to get out of these chains. But suddenly Chuxing had a headache, namely a round stone, which, after being reborn, changed the course of history. Chuxing also noticed this and took it out to see the changes. Chuxing noticed that the multi-level
Hammer.
space, which takes on different forms of cultivation, has increased in size. Suddenly, Chuxing noticed some loud cracking of a stone book. It was able to crack after a huge number of years, and the Imperial Heavenly Manuscript was kept in it. Chuxing didn't understand why it was sealed so carefully, but when he opened it, he couldn't even read the template. But suddenly Chuxing saw a turquoise ribbon, which he apparently knew about before, and was very surprised when he realized that the secret had been revealed so suddenly. But suddenly the book began to suck Chuxing with great force inside the book. Chuxing hated that damn Emperor Heavenly Reincarnation that sucked him in and spat him right out of the sky. But during his flight, Chuxing saw a flaming phoenix, which was the best spiritual beast. Chuxing flew through it and realized that it was an illusion of a book that simply turned into reality. Suddenly, Chuxing noticed the still dominant ancient beast and now began to understand that the Emperor had witnessed all these events. 2 beasts locked in battle in the south of the Immortal Sea, where spiritual mountains and wide valleys stretch. The battle caused the clouds to cover the sun, and the flames of battle burned the entire world to the ground, so that not a single living soul survived the 7-week battle. And the remaining soul of the flaming phoenix blood essence was sealed in this place. Suddenly, everything disappeared before Chuxing's eyes, but Chuxing felt the presence of some faint aura. It was the remaining flaming phoenix soul essence that Chuxing decided to take away. But when he grabbed it, Chuxing's hand instantly lit up, but for some reason, the flame did not dissipate. Chuxing began to worry because it was already a real fire that was burning his spiritual power. Chuxing felt like the fire had consumed his entire body, and his internal organs seemed to be burning. But at one point it all ended, and Chuxing returned from the book and almost had a heart attack due to the stress he experienced. But suddenly, Chuxing's entire body began to crack in the form of some golden petals. At this time, the poisonous Ian was already trying to wake him up, who did not understand why he passed out on the floor. Chuxing came to his senses, and at first did not understand what had happened.
Oh, there's no back
Then he
door.
jumped up in fear. Chuxing remembered everything, but his 5 senses were normal, and his spiritual sea was also in good condition. But Yang still couldn't understand what happened. Then suddenly, Chuxing began to rave again, and did not understand how he returned to the room. Suddenly, Yang, as if unwillingly, like a robot, started talking about how Chuxing had broken through to the 4th spiritual level, and would soon reach the demonic spiritual level, And then Yang became normal again and asked again if everything was okay with Chu Xing, to which Chu Xing nodded approvingly. But then Chu Xing asked what Yang was doing in his room because he asked not to disturb his rest. But Yang said that Chu Xing himself called him. But when he came running, he saw that Chu Xing was lying on the floor unconscious. Chu Xing hit himself on the head with his palm and didn't remember anything, so he didn't know whether Yang was telling him the truth or not. But Ian apologized for making him doubt him, and as a sign of devotion, decided to break his arm. But Chu Xing asked him not to do anything stupid and just forget about this incident. But the poisonous Yang noticed that Chu Xing seemed to be in great pain. But Chu Xing decided to put all the blame on sleep, and that's why his whole body hurt, especially his back. Then Yang decided to bring tea to the master, and Chu Xing happily drank it. Yang didn't understand why his master was so worried.
Why is that?
Chu Xing's cultivation was growing rapidly, and there was no reason to worry. But Chu Xing was more
All
afraid
right,
for
so
Lu
I
Xiang,
guess we're going
and
to the
understood that
room.
after 3 years of cultivation, it would take too long to reach a
I could
sufficient
pick that
level
up and
to
take it to the
return
room,
Lu
but
Xiang.
you know what? Never
Chu
mind.
Xing heard a
That don't.
noise on the street, and the poisonous Yang said that it was a stream of people who wanted to meet him and would give him gifts. Chu Xing was very nervous and had a headache. He didn't eat anything, and he just sat and suffered because of the pain in his back. Yang also conveyed a message from Chu Xing's friends, who had entered the martial houses and were leaving for the Imperial City today.
Stockings.
They also asked
Okay.
to send word when Chu Xing arrived in the Imperial City, but Chu Xing had no time for that now. Yang also said about a guest who called
See, we
himself
got
Yang
this.
Yan's student and was waiting for an invitation from Chu Xing, who asked Yang to give him a room. Yang left to accompany the guest, and Chu Xing, holding his back, which was literally on fire, walked to the mirror. And what a great surprise he was when he saw the flaming phoenix totem on his back. At this time, Lord Gu was playing a staring contest with Yang Yan's disciple. The Lord suspected that he was being deceived because the boy was too fat and did not look like Yang Yan's student. But he answered him that he was not his son, but a student, and therefore did not look like his teacher. Then Lord Gu asked him to show
Let me
his
grab my little noodles in my, cause now I get
Lord
to
Gu
eat.
wanted to escort him out of the house, but he simply slipped out from under his hands and said that the master had entrusted him with the building to guard Master Chu. Lord Gu said that he and poisonous Yang were enough for this matter. He once again grabbed disciple Yang Yan and asked him not to look at him from above and stop. But the fat man immediately turned to him and explained that yesterday, unknown masters of the heavenly level made their way into the city for unknown reasons. And Lord Gu immediately had flashbacks in the form of Bing Ling, who easily dealt with him. And the fat man said that he is almost at the top of the 8th earthly level. And at the end of the day, he is stronger than Lord Gu. Yang asked not to pester the guest of honor, Zai Yan, and asked him to wait a little for Master Chu Xing. But Lord Gu couldn't accept it, because he didn't even have the disciple badge of Ling Xiao's house. But Ian did not agree with him, because no one would send such a strong warrior simply on reconnaissance. Yang believed that they were of little use because they could not even defend themselves in the battle against Lin Bing. And the poisonous Yang also told them the truth, that they were trying to recruit him to kill Chu Xing. Zai Yan was furious when he learned that he was dealing with a family of people who were a huge problem. Zai Yan had heard about the Tai family and did not know what to do if he could not protect Master Chu Xing. At that moment, Chu Xing entered their hallway, who personally wanted to integrate with the representatives. He also noticed Zai Yan, whom he greeted, and Zai himself was very happy to meet such an outstanding talent.
Well, I get antidepressants. Let's go.
Because Master Yan,
No more sadness, baby.
talented and strong person, always has a good appearance. Chu Xing was flattered, but asked to sit down to discuss some issues. Zai spoke about the incident of Elder Gu, whom Yang Yan tried to stop. But in the end, he Gu himself lost his spiritual power because of Chu Xing, and therefore he may have harbored a grudge. Also, many people have learned how great Chu Xing's talent is, and therefore many will try to attack Chu Xing before Chu Xing becomes too strong.
Let's see.
Therefore, Zai came here and proudly told Chu Xing that he would protect him. But Zai decided to admit that he was delayed along the way and lost his token, so he might have missed
Level
something.
3.
Zai named 3 categories of people who could order
I
the
got
type
first
of
aid.
of which he identified the royal family, the martial house, and the trading magnate. Then Yang proposed his version
Got
of
no
organizing
farming.
the murder of Chu Xing on the initiative of
First
Elder
aid
Gu.
ain't. I only got this.
And is known for his vindictive nature.
5-6 on
towards those who
mechanics.
humiliated or insulted him. Zai may have suspected that the Tai family was simply helping Gu Qing since he was a member of the new school, but Chu Xing had never heard of it.
I
Then
have to
Zai
take
said that 17 years ago there was a turning point in the Imperial
some mechanical shit apart,
The
tell
new
you that
school and
much.
the ancient star sect now began to
Alright, my
dominate.
water's good.
Yang also added
Rocking the
that
dog
many
task,
people
you know
died
I'm a
before
soldier.
the ruling family was
Are you a soldier?
Xing didn't know where to start his investigation because there were too many serial killers who would still try to deal with him anyway. But Zai became very
Box of
worried and
motherfucking
asked
paper
Xing
clips.
not
I
to
don't
do
look.
anything because Dudu Chin, the master of the Tai family, is very
His name was Doodoo
It was
Chin.
better not to deal with him. It turned out to be a woman who was very cruel and changeable. She had a lot of heavenly level. Xing immediately understood who Tsai was talking about because he remembered this woman from a past life. Cherson decided not to disturb Tsai and said that he was just joking and did not say it seriously. Then Tsai put on the table a letter that Mrs. Qin asked him to give and also a bottle as a gift from him. In the letter, she wrote that her father became very ill and therefore she went immediately to the capital and also congratulated him on receiving the title of main disciple. He Chu did not believe that Qin could have fallen ill, but it was a progressive fever that haunted Lord Qin. Ma Chuxing remembered that Lady Qin had mentioned that the affairs of the Imperial City were involved, and therefore
Cool lunchbox. I don't need it.
Lord Gu immediately became furious with Tsai for not stopping this woman from getting into trouble. But Xing asked Gu to calm down, because perhaps this was a
So I'm
matter
getting
that was not
bored, but I
related
got
to
plenty of
the
injury. Yeah.
Chuxing generally suspected that this was a family matter, and therefore she could not ask for any help from outside. Chuxing suspected that she had learned something before leaving, so he decided that there was no need to interfere in Imperial affairs now. Lord Gu decided to apologize to Zai, but he only teased him, which greatly embarrassed him. Chuxing looked at the bottle and realized that in his past life, he left the Yun dynasty too early and therefore missed something. Zai saw Chuxing shaking his bottle and said that this was a treasure in medicine, but Chuxing decided to upset him because it was just a semi-finished product. Suddenly, a waiter knocked on their door and said that a servant girl was outside waiting to meet Chuxing. Lord Gu asked him to leave, but he said that she was not going to leave and she needed to return something. But Chuxing's guards found this too strange, and they stared at the servant girl who entered as if she were an enemy. Chuxing asked them to calm down and leave behind the girl who brought his cloak, and Chuxing immediately recognized her, because he remembered her from childhood. She was happy that he still remembered her name, because she thought that he would not recognize her. She opened her bag with a raincoat, which she washed in order to return it to Chuxing when it was clean. At first, she didn't recognize Chuxing at all because 7 years ago he was a weak child, but now he has become handsome and strong. Lord Gu thought it strange that she thought too highly of Mr. Chu because he thought that her lady Shui Qian would be furious. But Jin Kui didn't worry about it because she knew that her mistress simply couldn't accept her heart. She was also surprised that Chuxing showed kindness and mercy to Lady Shui Qian in the ring and thought that Chuxing had some feelings for her. Moreover, they were separated due to a quarrel and pressure from their father, and therefore everything could still change, thought Jin Kui. But Chuxing coldly replied that he was just being polite towards Sister Liu Xiang, and nothing more. Then Jin decided to ask how Mrs. Liu Xiang was doing, but Chuxing immediately changed his mood, and then she quickly left the house. She left the house and headed towards Madame Shui's carriage, which was in turmoil, because it was not because of Jin's delay that they did not have time to get to the fighting house, but an excuse. She said that Mr. Chu had been waiting for a long time to talk. Then Shui Qian became interested in what they were talking about. But then suddenly she took up her task again and said that he was on her blacklist, but she was still interested in what they were talking about. Then Jin shared information that Chuxing remembered her and said that they had not changed, but Shui Qian did not care about this. But according to Jin, Chuxing said that Shui Qian had become more beautiful than before, which greatly embarrassed Shui Qian. But then Jin said that they were just joking, to which Shui Qian almost killed her. And then in a fit of emotion, he shouted at the cab driver who was driving too slowly. At this time, somewhere 1,000 miles from the city of dark waters, mountains stretched, which were pierced by clouds. At the very top stood the 9th ice palace where Liu Xiang was taken. There was also Bing Ling, who was climbing somewhere along the ice bridge. Liu Xiang sat in one of the rooms and simply did not move, because she could not believe what had happened. She looked out the window and hoped that Chuxing would return and save her from the icy hell. She flew in her fantasies, imagining how Chuxing had already come to her. How can she meet him again, and everything will return as it was before, and they will never part. But these were just her dreams, which she believed in while holding Chuxing's talisman. But suddenly, while she was crying, someone knocked on her room. It was Bing Ling, who tried to be kind to her and brought her some kind of chess. She understood that Chu Xing could not get used to local food, and so she prepared normal hot dishes for her. Liu Xiang didn't believe Bing Ling and didn't want to eat it. Bing Ling understood that Liu Xiang hated her, but she believed that she did everything right for her own good. She warned that if she had not taken her then, the ice vein would have burst and destroyed many people, including Chu Xing. Bing Ling said that only here she can be controlled, but if Liu Xiang manages to take complete control over her, then she will leave here. But suddenly Ning Lu and Ning Xuan burst into their room, who were ordered to look and examine Liu Xiang. Also, in addition to them, a fearsome woman appeared here who had 8 badges on her parade ground, and therefore was higher in rank. Elder Bing Ling greeted Elder Yu Xiang.
There, go ahead.
She was more
Put my
interested
damn
in Liu Xiang
headphones
than the ninth ice vein.
inside
She
my
came
hoodie.
close to Liu Xiang,
There.
who did not understand what was about to happen, when suddenly Yusha grabbed her face with incredible force and pulled it back to look at this vein and make sure of it. She let go of Liu Xiang, who almost choked and realized how Chu Xing was holding back this vein and called him smart. Liu Xiang was not herself and said that he would come and save her, but the eldest did not think so. She grabbed Liu Xiang by the hair and began to pull it out like a buto, saying that no one could freely come and go out of the palace. Yusha said that there is a 4-kilometer valley with monsters, which an ordinary person cannot overcome. And even if Chu Xing steps onto the threshold of the ice palace, he will immediately freeze to death. She called Liu Xiang stupid and said that no one would save her, and Bing Ling felt sorry for her, because in fact, she deceived her. Yusha had no intention of wasting time on her and simply put her to sleep so that she would forget her memories one by one and just become an empty shell. Bing Ling noticed the silkworm stone that controlled a person's mind and realized that they wanted to make a puppet out of Liu Xiang. Bing Ling was furious that she was simply deceived, because they had seen such a person for 50 years, and now the eldest was simply trying to destroy such a unique person. But Yusha thought wisely and thanked Bing Ling for such a contribution. But Liu Xiang could not be left without control. Otherwise, she would have destroyed the entire palace. But Bing Ling remembered that she promised a way to save Liu Xiang and suppress the vein, but it turns out Yusha deceived her. Yusha told Bing Ling that Liu Xiang is just a test subject for the 9th Ice Palace, and no one needs her life. So thanks to her, Sister Bing Ling has a chance to get the crystal. Bing Ling immediately remembered her sister, who was dearer to her, and therefore, in Yusha's opinion, she should have been happy. They went outside, and in half a month, according to Yushi's plans, the craftswoman and part-time owner of the palace will return, who will take care of Liu Xiang. She also asked Lu to get rid of Liu Xiang's things, but Bing Ling asked to take care of this matter. But Yusha suspected that she could hide her things, but Bing Ling simply felt guilty towards her. Bing Ling gathered all her things and pulled off her coat, which left a huge memory of Chu Xing. The time was up, and she and her things went to burn them, but she was able to save an amulet in the form of Chu Xing for Liu Xiang, and hoped that this would not be the end for her. And Liu Xiang had already begun to awaken to memories that began from childhood, and it seemed to her that she was just sleeping. She ran out into the street where Chu Xing was still young and small. She was very glad that it all turned out to be a bad dream, and ran with joy into the arms of Chu Xing, who did not understand what was happening. Shui Qian at this time was still friends with everyone and rode on a swing, but even then she stood out more than Liu Xiang. She was Shui's father's pearl, and received many more gifts from her father, and also practiced martial arts. She knew a lot of stories, and constantly told them to Chu Xing and Liu Xiang, who, unlike her, had not traveled anywhere. One Liu Xiang fell and injured her leg as a child, and could not make Chu Xing wait. So the poet ran to ask her sister for help. But at this time, Chu Xing was already holding Shui Qian with his last strength, who was sitting on his shoulders and trying to get something. But Shui Qian didn't care, because he was stubbornly trying to get something and asked him to wait a little longer. But Liu Xiang didn't think so and began to rock the chair, which made both of them unable to resist. Therefore, Chu Xing fell first, and Shui Qian had already landed on him. Shui Qian even then began to take advantage of her position and arrogance and reproached Chu Xing for his uselessness. The maid who saw this but did nothing, but only laughed that the eldest daughter was mocking Chu Xing again. But Shui Qian decided to tell the maid why she did this, because Chu Xing couldn't even stand her while she tried to get the kite. But Liu Xiang always took care of Chu Xing, and she always felt sorry for him. Then Chu Xing twisted his ankle and the maid helped to lubricate it. Chu Xing was weak, unlike Shui Qian, because his family was completely destroyed, but he survived. Shui Qian then became curious that Chu Xing remembered those evil people who attacked his house. That day, Chu Xing's mother asked him to hide in the closet and not make a sound until she came to pick him up. Chu Xing could not remember them and was very afraid, but he wanted to take revenge, and Shui Qian scolded him for his uselessness and did not think that such a whiner could take revenge. The maid asked Lady Shui to stop calling Chu Xing useless because they were already engaged for the future under the Golden Seal Agreement. None of the children expected this then, but Chu Xing was opposite then, unlike Shui Qian, who never agreed to this. Then suddenly, Liu Xiang decided to intervene in their dispute, and she herself wanted to marry Chu Xing. Shui Qian liked this idea and happily agreed to give Chu Xing. But personally, when Chu Xing didn't hear, she said something completely different, which she didn't really like. Liu Xiang decided to start taking her first steps as a child towards Chu Xing and prepared him delicious spring rolls. But Shui Qian didn't really like it, and she decided to surprise Chu Xing too and show off her new technique. Back then, Shui Qian had already learned to use her fox fighting spirit and perform some strikes. Chu Xing was surprised at how powerful they were, but he was even more surprised by the cute tale of Shui Qian's fighting spirit. But suddenly the paradise for Liu Xiang from the memories ended, and everything disappeared and began to fill with water. After which, Liu Xiang began to freeze into ice. Liu Xiang definitely didn't expect this, and then realized that her memories were suddenly disappearing. Liu Xiang was completely frozen at this age, and all memories up to that point were completely erased. At this time, Ning Lu ran to Elder Yusha, but instead of hospitality, she saw a green eye, who shot her with some kind of ray and broke one of her earrings. The chief elder was there dealing with personal affairs, so to speak, and could not tolerate people breaking into her room without permission. Yusha said that she saw something she shouldn't have seen, so she knew what to do. After Lu punished herself in some incomprehensible way, Yusha asked what happened, and Ning Lu, who remained to monitor Liu Xiang, reported the news that the 9 veins of the puppet had already begun to sprout. Therefore, Yusha gathered all the elders near Liu Xiang, who was all glowing from within. Some elder was simply shocked by the beauty of Liu Xiang and wanted to take her home at the end of the whole process. But Yusha did not want to take her this puppet because it already obviously belonged to her. Everyone praised Bing Ling for making a great contribution in finding Liu Xiang. Yusha decided to get closer to the matter and asked Yu Lu, what is the probability that this is a truly valuable treasure? Yu Lu believed that this was the best treasure and the chance for it was the highest due to Liu Xiang's fighting ability. Yusha did not know what to do with her, to which Yu Lu said that her energy is incredibly strong, and therefore Liu Xiang herself is very fragile in relation to her. First, they were going to clear her mind, and only then carry out shenanigans with the snowstorm. Yusha was going to make it on time, no matter the cost, because she didn't want the craftswoman to see the end. Therefore, the right craftswoman. While Liu Xiang's ice veins grew very slowly,
holy shit,
suppressed for several days. Yusha and Jade decided to stay to suppress the growth of Liu Xiang's 9 ice veins, and Bing Ling and Chris went in search of the 9-star lotus, which was very difficult to get. Chris and Bing Lin had already climbed to the point they needed, because they knew that here was the nest of the 9-star lotus. But first of all, Chris decided to clear the way to them since there were a lot of monsters here. One of them came out of the ice, and through negligence, Chris grabbed her and swallowed her. But Chris was able to deal with him and cut him into pieces without any problems, because she herself had 8 stars of the Ice Palace and was quite strong. But Chris, who fell down, was immediately attacked by a flock of some worms, which Bing Lin was able to destroy using her technique. Thanks to her attack, all the monsters were defeated, and Chris was already running forward into the cave. Bing Lin continued to attack and almost hit Chris, who was already furious, but Bing Lin could not hear her because of the wind. Chris barely escaped from the mad Bing Ling, who wanted to take revenge on her for the past, but ended up running into some giant stone monster. He began to walk towards Chris with great speed, which even Bing Ling was shocked. She realized that things were not bad and tried to freeze him. Bing Ling picked him up and wanted to break the ice with him, and asked Chris to hurry up and help her. But the monster coped with the ice prison and got out. He managed to strike Bing Ling, but did not yet know the consequences of attacking the frosty owl without a weapon. After the blow, his hand froze and fell off, and at that moment Chris jumped and nailed him, and the monster decreased in size. Bing Ling began to swear at Chris, who was not even in a hurry to go downstairs when she asked for help. At this time, Liu Xiang had already been placed in a cube, and her cold ki was being cultivated since the roots of the ninth ice vein could sprout at any moment. At this moment, Liu Xiang kept having thoughts and memories running through her head. Now they have fast-forwarded some time, and Liu Xiang has become a carefree child again. She remembered everything perfectly, and again, rushed into the arms of Chu Xing, who again did not understand anything. Shui Qian was infuriated by Liu Xiang's behavior, but they allowed everything and went to play hide and seek. They pretended to go right, but actually went back and hid behind a tree. While Chu Xing was searching, he encountered Patriarch Shui, who was for him, while the devil. He hated Chu Xing with all his heart, and never allowed him to be in his courtyard, although Chu Xing did not listen to him. But this time, he was very angry and burned with hatred towards him, which caused Chu Xing's soul to sink in. The girls decided to stand up for their friend and asked not to offend Chu Xing, because Shui Qian herself invited him to play. Patriarch Shui immediately changed his mood and was very happy to see his eldest daughter. But he couldn't ask Chu Xing, who was playing with his beautiful daughter again, and kicked him in the stomach. Then Liu Xiang and Shui Qian began to worry about Chu Xing and asked Patriarch Shui to calm down. But Shu Yu didn't care. He asked his servants to take Chu Xing and teach him a lesson. They took him to a separate room and could not understand why he repeated the same mistake every time he came to their yard. Shui, after dealing with Chu Xing, already turned to his daughters, who disappointed him. He didn't like Liu Xiang either, and forced her to work until she finished. She couldn't eat or sleep, and he decided to talk to Shui Qian. Liu Xiang. One day, when she was spending the night in the closet, she heard Shui Qian, who decided to check on her. Shui Qian had already been brainwashed by her father, and she told her sister that it was better for them not to see Chu Xing again. But Liu Xiang did not want that. Liu Xiang asked what would happen to Chu Xing, but Shui Qian did not answer him and just left. After 10 days, Liu Xiang finished her work and ran into the courtyard hoping to see Chu Xing. And Chu Xing, who apparently didn't understand anything, just came to the yard to see everyone again. Liu Xiang rushed into his arms again, but instead of warmth, he felt severe pain. Liu Xiang did not understand what had happened to him, and Chu Xing began to worry a little. Shui Qian wanted to find out what happened, and therefore asked Chu Xing to show the possible beating. He easily laid him down and pulled off his shirt, under which there were multiple scars. Liu Xiang was shocked and almost burst into tears, and Shui Qian asked how he got such wounds. But Chu Xing remained silent. Chu Xing did not want to be touched and said that it was none of her business, and pushed him away. Chu Xing saw how Shui Qian's face changed, and realized that he had gone too far and decided to make excuses. A tearful Liu Xiang grabbed Chu Xing and asked why he was treated this way. But Chu Xing put Liu Xiang to rest with a smile on his face, and took the hands of both girlfriends, and said that everything will be fine as long as he can be with them. But Shui Qian was furious. She didn't understand how Chu Xing could put up with such serious wounds. She tore his shirt again and told him not to lie to her because it couldn't help but hurt, and she deliberately started poking at the wounded places. Liu Xiang barely stopped Shui Qian, who suddenly began to offend Chu Xing, and only after Liu Xiang's words she realized. But because of Liu Xiang's concerns, Shui Qian only hated Chu Xing even more and asked him not to come here anymore. Liu Xiang decided that her sister had gone too far, and Chu Xing also decided to apologize and take all the blame on himself. But in Shui Qian's head, it was as if everything changed in a second, or just accumulated and splashed out on that day. She slapped him and wasn't going to waste her time on him anymore. She began to furiously call Chu Xing a non-entity, and no longer considered him her friend and asked him to stay away from her house. In case Chu Xing comes back again, she will beat him. Chu Xing said with tears in his eyes that he understood everything, and he was going to leave without her help. And Shui Qian apparently understood that she was going too far, but it was as if something else was controlling her. Chu Xing ran away in tears and could not believe that he was so betrayed. Liu Xiang was very offended by her sister and did not understand why she did this. But Shui Qian called her cheap and worthless and said that if she tries to see Chu Xing again, she will tell her father everything. Since that day, Liu Xiang has never made peace with her sister, and she has not seen Chu Xing for more than a month. But one day, Chu Xing decided to try his luck again and returned to the courtyard, which Liu Xiang was very happy about. But Chu Xing's wounds had not yet healed, so Liu Xiang hurt him again and began to apologize. But Chu Xing did not see this as a problem or a reason for the tears that began to flow from her. But at this moment, Shui Qian appeared again, who was surprisingly calmer. Liu Xiang decided to stand up for Chu Xing and told Shui Qian not to come here at all, because her meetings did not concern her. But this only infuriated Shui Qian, and she began to threaten her father, who could break her legs. But Chu Xing didn't want to argue and make a fuss, but simply asked for some time to talk to Liu Xiang. He said that the remnants of the Chu family would leave Qifeng City tomorrow, so he came to say goodbye. Liu Xiang could not believe that Chu Xing was leaving, and according to his then words, he would leave forever. Shui Qian heard this, and was quite pleased with this, and asked to quickly end all conversations and get out of here. Chu Xing was about to leave, but Liu Xiang grabbed him and asked him to take him with her. Liu Xiang thought that Chu Xing liked her sister, but did not suspect that his thinking had completely changed. But Liu Xiang that day decided to confess to Chu Xing, who could do nothing now. After that day, Liu Xiang constantly cleaned the house and no one paid attention to her. Some of the guests knew that this was Shui Qian's sister, but Qian herself asked not to pay attention to her and just to forget. Years passed, and Liu Xiang worked day and night, but she didn't even get tired, as if she was waiting for a miracle. She hoped that someday Chu Xing would gain strength and return to pick her up, and apparently God heard her petitions. On the day when Chu Xing arrived at Shui's house at the beginning of the story, Liu Xiang was cleaning the street and heard people talking about Chu Xing. She immediately guessed why he came, but could still doubt it. Liu Xiang decided to see for herself and tried to squeeze through the crowd where people didn't like her interfering where she shouldn't. She overheard the conversation outside the door and heard that Chu Xing wanted to marry not her sister, but her. She couldn't believe it, even though she'd been waiting for it all her life. They went somewhere together, but Liu Xiang still didn't understand what was happening because she had feelings like he was living this life again. At this time, it was already deep night in the 9th Ice Palace. Ning Lu and Shuang were sleeping at this time, until some small monster crawled towards them, which Chris had taken earlier in the day. He grew during this time and came into his true form. Ning Lu and Shuang were very scared because they thought it was a man. Because of this incident, these humanoids had to be locked in a special cage so that they would not cause a stir. But it turned out that this was a cage and no match at all, and they all ran away because of Chris. Chris found these humanoids again in the room of the lower-class girls of the Ice Palace. These women were very scared because they thought that from one touch of this monster they could get pregnant. But Chris, trying to hold back her laughter, said that she didn't know. But Chris suddenly noticed these three-legged monsters, which she also decided to knock out. The next day, the eldest had questions about this incident, and how Chris could even bring them into the house was not clear to her either. Bing Ling asked them all to calm down, because they had not seen men since childhood, and therefore thought that this was some kind of danger. But in fact, it was just a monster. The eldest decided to believe Bing Ling, because after all, she had been outside the zone of the palace and its activities for more than a year, and therefore knew a lot about the words. But Bing Ling was infuriated that it was because of Chris that such
something's close by giving me
that there was no time for it all. The point was not at all about their existence.
Something's leveling
they
me.
used them to create certain artifacts, but Chris destroyed almost all of them at night. Bing Ling and Yusha were about to fry shellfish, but Yusha suddenly became interested in a slightly strange question.
I got
to
those
Bing Ling
already.
about
Metalworking
touching
one.
Bing Ling remembered that while performing a task, her hands touched her, and then Yusha went crazy and wanted to chop her to hell. But at that moment, they were distracted by Elder Yu Long, who was about to cut up shellfish and fry them to create a masterpiece. Bing Ling and Yusha were a little disgusted to watch this. Yu Long finished and showed her comrades the 9-star
Trying to get them
lotus.
stats up,
They were
son.
surprised how good it looked, as it was much better than her previous works. This lotus can calmly absorb a huge amount of energy without any problem and transform the ice vein. Chris brought more clams, and they had already made all 3 lilies that were needed for Liu Xiang and her 9th ice vein. She began her trial of Liu Xiang, and each of the elders took 1 lotus, which represented moonlight, starlight, and dawn. All 3 colors began to fuse together to form a jade lotus for protection. They all merged and settled on the tips of the ice that covered Liu Xiang's body. Now Yu Long came with special needles that were needed to block some points, and Liu Xiang had not yet erased all her memories, and she was living the moment when she had already married Chu Xing. At that moment, Xiao Hu entered Liu Xiang's room and asked a provocative question about the night he shared with Chu Xing. Liu Xiang did not want to answer this, and began tossing and turning and talking nonsense. And at that time, Chu Xing arrived. Chu Xing asked what she was doing now, but Liu Xiang began to make an excuse, because she understood that she was doing complete nonsense. Liu Xiang accidentally bit Chu Xing and ran to her room all red as a tomato. She jumped into bed and didn't understand what she was doing out of excitement and thought that Chu Xing was making fun of her now. But instead, she heard some noise and thought that someone had entered the room. She saw some ice snakes crawling straight towards her. She didn't understand how snakes could end up here and began to panic very much. She rushed out of the room in tears to Chu Xing, who was in the next room. She complained to him about the snakes that appeared in her room, but Chu Xing calmed her down and said that it was just a dream. Suddenly, the words of all her acquaintances began to creep into Liu Xiang's head about the fact that she only brings misfortune to everyone. Suddenly, all the people who mocked her in her head turned into some kind of bugs who wanted to erase her memory. Shui Qian also appeared, who was just an illusion in Liu Xiang's head, and said that Chu Xing would forget about her and not come to her aid. She said that there were many beauties in the Imperial City, and he would simply forget about Liu Xiang. But Liu Xiang did not want to believe it. Liu Xiang believed that he would come for her, but Shui Qian said that promises were absolutely hopeless. She said that Chu Xing's only love was her and always will be, and Liu Xiang is only a temporary replacement. All these illusions and words had a very strong impact on the psyche and memories of Liu Xiang, who had almost gone crazy. She believed only in Chu Xing, and she still had hope. She nervously tried to destroy all bad thoughts, and then she burst into tears, and knew that even if Chu Xing forgot her, she would never forget him. Suddenly, Chu Xing appeared in her memories again, because she managed to overcome the negative influence of the amulet for a while. Chu Xing promised that he would never forget Liu Xiang, but Liu Xiang suddenly noticed how she injured him with her blade during an embrace. Liu Xiang started to have problems with her head again, and started to become hysterical. She rushed to Chu Xing, who was no longer breathing, and told herself that this was not true. But suddenly everything changed, and Liu Xiang seemed to be overcome by some strange blue gust of energy. At this time, spring had already arrived, and Chu Xing and his team were moving to the Imperial City. Poison Yang was positive and knew that with such strength they would be able to repel the
Why is my
men.
dog barking?
Lord Gu at this time mocked Zai, who was
Oh,
deceived
she's
into medicine,
asleep.
and next time
She's
asked him
my
to
dog
buy
is
them some
asleep,
special places.
barking in her
Zai
sleep.
replied that he did it while drunk, but suddenly they noticed a strange man during their argument. Zai found this man very mysterious and a little scary. Zai asked him to stop, as if he recognized someone in him, but he simply ran away. It turns out that it was his debtor to whom he lost all the money, and therefore the furious Zai ran after him. Chu Xing did not understand what happened, and Lord Gu, who could not stop him, told everything. Chu Xing waited for Zai, who returned with nothing, because that swindler ran away through a bamboo grove. Lord Gu asked him at the very beginning not to rock the boat, because he then thought that this was the killer of the Tian clan. Soon they reached a certain settlement, where the grandfather drank tea and knew about the man who deceived travelers. Grandfather poured tea for his guests, and told Zai that he could not help him with anything, because it was his mistake. Grandfather said that this swindler constantly did not have enough money for his gambling. He also felt very sorry for her talented daughter, who does not allow her to develop. Zai immediately remembered the girl whose name was Luo Wei. Chu Xing remembered her from a past life. She was very closely connected with him, and so he urgently asked to be taken there. Chu Xing was sent to the village of Luoju, where Zai still dreamed of finding the swindler. But Chu Xing said that if something happened, he would not stand up for him. Having finished the conversation there, they headed through the bamboo grove to the village. At this time, they were apparently being followed by killers who were on their trail. They discussed Chu Xing, who, according to his grandfather, was the most dangerous of all, although in terms of spiritual strength, he was the weakest of all. The scout grandfather, who seemed to be with a professional killer, was afraid that Chu Xing was developing too quickly. While Chu Xing was driving to the village, he remembered the name Lo Wei and all the moments that were connected with her in a past life. But suddenly, Chu Xing seemed to sense some uninvited guests among the bamboo. Zai asked what happened, but Chu Xing said that everything was fine, although in fact he felt someone's presence. They were soon to arrive at the village of Liu Zuo, and Zai asked them to wait, while he asked the residents about everything. Zai first approached the girl and asked where Lo Wei's house was, but she ran away from him as quickly as possible. Sai ran after her and soon caught up with her and brought her to his guise, saying that the answer was right in front of him. Zai started to swear at Luo Wei's father, who stole a lot of money from him, but Luo Wei started to fight. Luo Wei tried to run away again, but the rest of Chu Xing's guards appeared in front of her. Luo Wei burst into tears and Chu Xing asked who she was, because at first he didn't recognize her at all. But when Luo Wei heard the name Chu Xing, for some reason she immediately ran to him to ask for help. Chu Xing realized that this was the same girl he was looking for, and he promised her to beat those scoundrels who offended her. He decided to throw threats at his guards in a humorous way so that Luo Wei would believe, and then in the same comic manner give them blows so that Luo Wei will definitely believe. She began to remember a moment from her past life when he first met her. At that time, Luo Wei was running home because it was starting to rain heavily. She saw some sounds in the bushes and got very scared and was about to fight. It was Chu Xing from a past life who was chased by pursuers who wounded him with a poisonous arrow. He asked her to run away because the people who were looking for him could kill her too. At that moment, Chu Xing had already passed out due to the poison, and Luo Wei decided to show mercy and try to save him. Therefore, in this life, Chu Xing had already found her and tried to establish good friendly contact. Luo Wei said that she had already heard about him and knew him, and Chu Xing thought that they had already met before. Then Luo Wei told about the qualifying round, where she was also there and watched everything from the shoulders of Lord Gu. Then she admired Chu Xing, because he could easily deal with opponents with one blow. Chu Xing knew what abilities she had and thought that she also took part in the selection. Luo Wei did not participate and was present as a spectator because the entrance fee was very high, and besides, she thought that she did not have martial arts. But Chu Xing took her hand and proved that she has talent and strength. If someone takes up her training, she will become a strong warrior. Luo Wei was very happy that she could become like Chu Xing in the future. Chu Xing decided to ask a question about the bottle that Luo Wei made herself, but she suddenly felt ashamed. Suddenly, she burst into tears because she had not finished working on this elixir, but her father took it away from her and sold it to Zai. Chu Xing said that it was not her fault and knew a way to return the money to all of them. Luo Wei was still upset and thought that they were trying to extort her father's debts. But in this case, Chu Xing was not so kind, because in fact, he wanted to invest his money in Luo Wei's future. Chu Xing took and gave Luo Wei a ring that was filled with herbs. It could help her practice her skills. Chu Xi asked her to try to concentrate and gather all the spiritual energy, but Luo Wei understood the South a little wrong and began to tense up. But after a while, she succeeded, and she saw some points that would help her gain knowledge as a basic training.
Oh crap, I
This panel
accidentally
had
closed
everything
it.
from spiritual liquids to an ordinary apple. He also showed how to mentally draw a symbol so that the ring could disappear for her own safety. Luo Wei didn't understand why Chu Xing gave her such valuable things, but Chu Xing decided to say it as a joke, because she still wouldn't understand what he owed her in a past life. She said goodbye to Chu Xing and promised to make the right and strong potion. Lord Gu was wondering how they were connected, because Chu Xing, in his opinion, was very kind to this girl. But Chu Xing said that Luo Wei was a genius and was very upset that she was born in this place. They went on their way and saw a city where there was a guard post, and after it a city several miles long. They decided to have a snack in this city, so that later they could go to the Imperial City with renewed vigor. Sai knew about these places and said that there could be monsters here, so there are a large number of posts in the area. There was also a shelter.
So I gotta go back
in
over
the
to get
event
the
of large
vehicle
monster attacks,
and move
people
it to
hide
at
and wait
least
for
like
the arrival
in
of city
between.
soldiers. The guard at the post asked who they were, and Sai showed him the campus student badge and introduced Lord Gu. They lied on purpose because they were not allowed to reveal their identity. During lunch, the worst thing happened, something our team clearly couldn't expect at that time. These were monsters, of which there were a lot, although they should not have been
There's
at all
nothing
at
here
this time of
down.
year. Many guards began to gather together to form a defensive
I
formation.
tried to get in there, but
Chu
it
Xing
wouldn't let me.
immediately understood what was happening, because such a coincidence could not have happened, and asked where the wave of monsters approximately began. Sai said that somewhere in the northwest, where they came from, but asked not to worry because it was safe here. But Chu Xing immediately rushed off without listening to him. Sai stopped him and said that his main goal is to protect him, so he cannot let him go. Chu Xing immediately explained his intentions and the possible danger to Luo Wei. Then Zai agreed to go with him. They were almost out of the city, but they were stopped by a guard who said that it was too dangerous there. He knew that they were also warriors, but there were too many monsters, so going out to them was a stupid idea. Suddenly, More people came who knew that they were from the campus family, and therefore were masters who could protect them. People began to beg Tsai and Lord Gu to help them defend the city, but they clearly did not want this, because their main task was to protect Chu Xing. But Chu Xing asked them to calm down and stay to defend the cities, while he himself jumped over the fence and ran away. Poisonous Yang also decided to follow Chu Xing and abandoned his fellow workers. Yang caught up with Chu Xing and said that the road they were on was cut off because of monsters, so he suggested choosing another route. But Chu Xing didn't have time for that. Chu Xing was confident that he could pass, even if there were a bunch of monsters there. In the forest, they were already met by a bunch of snakes and some chipmunks, who went wild and just started biting them. But they didn't care about them, because on their way, they encountered a cliff that was impossible to overcome. They were already being caught up in the back by wild boars, which Chu Xing decided to use to descend the mountain. They jumped on them, and Chu Xing asked the frightened Yang to start controlling them when they came down. To control animals and monsters, it was necessary to expend spiritual energy, which depended on the physical training of people. They roared down the mountain, and Ian almost went crazy from the adrenaline he experienced during this descent. But they still didn't have time, and they ran further, but said next to them it just exploded. It was a hammer spirit monster with a spiritual cultivation level that caused the collapse. Chu Xing knew that this spirit animal only goes berserk if it is controlled by someone. Chu Xing wanted to quickly deal with him because he didn't have time. The hammer dragon had completely impenetrable protection in the form of scales, but also had a weak spot in the neck area. In this place, the scales of the hammer were much weaker than in other areas, and therefore Chu Xing hit it directly. After being hit by this piece, Chu Xing was able to easily damage his spiritual core and defeat him. Chu Xing defeated him and told Yang that they had no more time, but suddenly more similar hammers appeared, one of which almost hit Chu Xing. Immediately, more than 10 of these individuals crawled out of the rocks. They were very aggressive, as if someone was controlling them. For Chu Xing, this situation was very deplorable because he could not spend so much time on them. Yang at that moment had already come to his senses and protected Chu Xing from the hammer blow, and Chu Xing himself was already running towards the village. Chu Xing left the monsters to Yan and ran with all his might to the village to Luo Wei. Along the way, he met monsters, which he easily cut down. There were quite a lot of them, and Chu Xing tried to clear his way from them as quickly as possible. Suddenly, he noticed hypnotized cattle and realized that the village was already close. He easily killed a huge boar and blamed himself for his carelessness, since he did not even think that Luo Wei could be involved in his affairs. Having reached Luo Wei's house, he saw it blazing on fire. Chu Xing was at peace, because he gave her that ring, which in case of danger from fire can create protection. Using his ring, he saw the location of Luo Wei, who was located right in this house. But Chu Xing was not stupid. He realized that the enemy was inside and was using the defenseless girl as bait. He entered the burning house very carefully and understood what awaited him now. He took out his sword and was ready to repel the attacks of the monster lord who planned all this. Chu Xing knew that he was going straight according to the enemy's plan into the inferno of the house, which would then be surrounded by thousands of monsters and destroy it. But Chu Xing was ready for this and knew that the enemy's plan would not work. Luo Wei was not at all in the protective circle at this time, and the bound one had just woken up after being switched off. She realized that she had been kidnapped and her village was completely on fire. She couldn't believe that she would die here, but suddenly some kind of spiritual wolf appeared who wanted to eat her, but its owner did not give her such a command. This was the same animal master who conceived all this to organize the murder of Chu Xing. Chu Xing had already broken into the house and saw Luo Wei alone and tried to free her while she was trying to say something. But before she had time to scream about the trap, the same wolf that almost devoured him had already rushed at Chu Xing. Chu Xing managed to close and flew a couple of meters, and then plunged his sword into the monster's throat. Chu Xing did not expect such a sharp and unexpected attack and was wounded in the shoulder. And the three-eyed spiritual wolf stood up and was ready to continue the fight. Chu Xing expected something like this to happen, so he wasn't too surprised. He was deprived of the ability to control one hand, but was confident that he could cope with the monster with one hand. What basically happened, Chu Xing dealt with the wolf literally in an instant. He was covered in the remains of a wolf and waited until the main boss, so to speak, of this whole brawl showed up. And this boss, so to speak, was completely shocked when he realized that Chu Xing could see him through his invisibility. The enemy knew that he did not have any special artifacts other than the sword, but the aura was not that of an ordinary person at the level of spiritual cultivation. The assassin couldn't think of anything better than to go out and capture Lo Wei. But Chu Xing only smiled maliciously in response, which infuriated the enemy even more, who already wanted to cut. Chu Xing found it funny that the killer hired to kill him was now hiding behind the back of a 10-year-old girl. Chu Xing also added that a person from the Tianyang clan turns out to be nothing more than a coward. But the enemy was not going to react to such provocations and asked to throw weapons to Chu Xing. Chu Xing did not decide to risk the life of Luo Wei because he did not know what was on his head and threw away his weapon. But Lo Wei's enemy was not going to let her go and quietly left the building with her. But Lo Wei didn't think so and was able to escape from the killer to Chu Xing, who definitely didn't expect this. The enemy tried to attack both of them, but Chu Xing grabbed Luo Wei and managed to counterattack. From one powerful blow to a special point, the enemy flew away. In Chu Xing, the house
problems with
exploded.
fools
The enemy was
outside.
surprised that Chu Xing used a spiritual stone to attack, and then realized that his sternum was broken. But he was still glad that he was able to kill Chu Xing, who, in his opinion, was now on fire. At this time, Zai was using his spiritual power to stop the attack of a huge boar. Zai was surprised that spiritual
Julie
monsters under
Goodbar
someone's
tries to
control
be a
could
good
have such
wife, but her
destructive
husband
power.
Liam
But Zai was
doesn't
much
care,
stronger than
control
all
him.
of them, and they were simply
Demeaning and
insignificant
violent.
to him.
Julie sees
He
no
activated
way
his
out but
martial
to
spiritual
fake
beast
her
bear,
own death
which
and
was already
escape,
able to
but
deal
the
with the boar
arrogant
with ease.
Truth and
But the
violence
boar
to
was
track
only
her
a small
down.
problem because the animal
1992
stayed
rated
instead.
R.
Lord
I
Gu
think I've
also
seen
tried his best
the
and didn't
danger in
understand
your
why they were
bed.
so fierce.
I think I know
For
what
quite a
kind of
long
movie
period
that
of
is.
time,
Ain't that like
they
the
managed
movie
to repulse
Enough?
the attack, and Lord Gu did not even suspect that he would ever be on the front line. The bear in the guise of Zai said that the monsters had stopped attacking, and Lord Gu thought that another one had come. Zai realized that Lord Gu was thinking and began to mock him, and Lord Gu made excuses. Suddenly, they heard powerful explosions to the side where the village of Luoji was burning, and then Zai remembered that Chu Xing had run in that direction. They realized that this was a planned attack to delay them, and rushed to help Chu Xing. Zai put Lord Gu on his spirit bear, and they ran as fast as they could towards the village. Suddenly, Lord Gu saw traces of a battle somewhere in the forest not far away, and they turned there. They saw a bunch of hammer dragons that were defeated, as well as one that Chu Xing destroyed with his technique. Zai found the poisonous Yang, who was lying under the rubble of one of the monsters. At this time, the enemy was still watching the burning
Might as well
house
sit and
and was
read.
going to take Chu Xing's things. He knew that Chu Xi's sword was quite an expensive thing, and therefore decided to take it. But suddenly someone grabbed him by the neck, and with a powerful blow pushed him far away. It was surprisingly Chu Xing who didn't look like himself. It was no longer Chu Xing, but his inner demon, which could be understood from his eyes. The enemy began to worry because he could not do anything, and also lost his amulet. Chu Xing showed it, because he had just taken it away when he grabbed him by the neck. He implied that he used this piccolo to control monsters, but the enemy found it funny, because he could control this piccolo even if it was not in his hands, and therefore again sent a group of monsters to Chu Xing. But nothing happened. Not a single monster appeared in the area. He didn't understand what was happening, but it turned out that Chu Xing had completely taken control of this piccolo and was approaching it better. The enemy began to run away in fear, and Chu Xing had already returned to his previous position. But he still didn't want to leave the killer alive and therefore asked him not to resist. He fell because he was knocked down by Chu Xing, who couldn't believe that a freak like him could send his herd of monsters on innocent people to achieve his goals. Chu Xing asked how he wanted to end this life, because he wanted a freak like him to suffer. But the enemy did not want to apologize and asked for alms, and therefore only aggravated his situation. Chu Xing, with the help of a piccolo, was able to target a defenseless killer who, just a couple of hours ago, wanted to burn the entire village. Suddenly, an arrow almost flew into Chu Xing's back, which he stopped without even turning around. It was some unknown but very strong person who surprisingly represented the Tian clan and decided to make peace with Chu Xing. But Chu Xing arrogantly threw away his peace paper and said that he was not interested in such stupid proposals. Then the unknown lady asked simply not to kill his brother, and in return offered her help at any time. But Chu Xing didn't care, and he headed towards Luo Wei, who was lying under a special protective vacuum. Chu Xing felt guilty for dragging Luo Wei into this. He decided to quickly get her out of here because it was still dangerous here. Chu Xing, due to exhaustion of energy, lost consciousness, and saw in the distance some kind of bear with a man and thought that they were monsters again. But it was Lord Gu who shouted to Chu Xing that he would help him now. And then Chu Xing passed out and woke up in some strange place, similar to another dimension. Then Chu Xing already realized that this was a vision since he was in the floating mountains, which physically could not be reality. Chu Xing decided to take a walk and stepped into a puddle where there was a water lily, which was somehow connected to Lu Xiang. At this time, he was woken up by Lo Wei, who fortunately for him was fine.
Nothing.
But Chu Xing himself felt a strong ache in his body. Lo Wei noticed that Chu Xing had woken up and rushed into his arms because she was grateful to him with her life for saving her.
How long?
But because of the
3 hours?
Chu Xing felt
I think that's about enough time. I think 3
Lo
hours
Wei
is
did not
good.
understand what had happened.
I just worked
Chu
like
Xing came to his senses
10 hours.
and she brought him tea.
10 hours
and said
plus
that
3
he had
is
been in a coma for 2
13.
days.
You know what?
But
I
Chu
might
Xing
give it.
decided to
You
lie
know
to
what?
her
Let me
a
just
little.
knock it
He
out
said
for
that
at
his
least
only had a
another
small
hour.
wound, and
How
that he
about
was
that?
not in a coma, but simply slept for a long time. At this time, his guards burst into the room, who were also worried about his condition. But Chu Xing asked everyone to calm down and apologized for causing everyone to worry. Lord Gu began to laugh, because he knew that everything would be fine with him. And Yang blamed himself for this, and was already thinking about going to heaven after him. Sai was laughing all this time at the poisonous Yang, who was chattering like an old woman all this time. Yang apologized for not being able to protect Chu Xing, but Chu Xing insisted that it was his justified risk. And Lord Gu again decided to get to the bottom of Luo Wei and told her that she owed him her life because Chu Xing saved her. But Chu Xing didn't really like that Lord Gu was clinging to the child again, and he decided to ask what happened. Zai said that at that time the guards from the Dark Water City had already arrived and Chu Xing was seriously injured. Zai also asked Chu Xing to restore his strength since soon they would have to hit the road again. Chu Xing lay down and asked what Luo Wei wanted to talk to him about. Lo Wei entered and somehow strangely hesitated in her words, because she had some kind of request. She thanked Chu Xing for saving her, and apparently was imbued with Lord Gu's words, and wanted to become his maid. Chu Xing laughed a little and said that Gu was just talking nonsense, but Luo Wei, it turns out, wanted it herself. She once again recalled the attack of monsters and the burning house, but did not even know that it was the fault of Chu Xing, who dragged himself into this place. Chu Xing said that he had done his duty, and therefore Luo Wei should not burden herself. But Luo Wei misunderstood this, and thought that she was not capable, and even Chu Xing did not want to take her. But Chu Xing immediately stopped her, and suggested that she just stay with him and go to the Imperial City. Lo Wei burst into tears of joy, and was in seventh heaven with happiness, and of course agreed to his proposal. Luo Wei thought that if Chu Xing did not want to make her a maid, but wanted to take her with him, then she thought that he wanted to make her his bride. But Chu Xing just laughed at this and almost passed out again due to the pain. Chu Xing said that this was not true at all, and he just showed mercy towards her and took her with him as she did not have at home. Chu Xing later meditated and realized that the essence of phoenix blood helped him survive the fire. Chu Xing formed a ball of phoenix blood essence, which helped to recover faster from injuries. Phoenix was a fiery creature, therefore it had the properties of restoring the body. Chu Xing thought that the scarlet essence was needed only to treat others, but it turns out that it also had an effect on its bearer. But unfortunately, due to the level of spiritual power, Chu Xing could not use even 1 world of 1,000 of this super powerful power. This Scarlet Emperor essence was simply a treasure for Chu Xing, which helped him heal in just a couple of days. Luo Wei was having fun on the street at that time, and did not understand how Chu Xing could recover all alone for 2 days. She also did not understand the guards, who had been playing chess all this time, and saw how worried she was, and therefore tried to prove to her that Chu Xing was recovering like that. But Luo Wei was stupid, and decided to check Chu Xing because she still considered herself guilty of his injuries. She decided to put some food and not disturb Chu Xing during his meditations. She decided to just take a quick look at how Chu Xing was doing, but saw that he was not on the bed, and Chu Xing almost had a heart attack, because at first he thought that killers had gotten to him. Luo Wei said that she was very worried about him and came, but instead of getting angry, Chu Xing patted her on the head. The 5 days that Yang Yan gave him had already expired, and therefore Chu Xing had to hurry, because the situation could change a lot. But the guards were not sure that Chu Xing only had a couple of days to fully recover. Chu Xing did not reveal the truth to his guards and asked Yang to go to Xifeng City as he too needed to recover. And about the Tian clan, Chu Xing asked not to worry, because he had already solved the problem with them. They mounted a horse and headed to the Imperial City, and Luo Wei was wondering why he didn't choose the Yinmeng martial house. She thought that Ling Xiao had the second rank among all the martial houses, so she didn't think about why such a strong master could choose not the best martial house. But Zai, who had been arriving at Ling Xiao's house for a long time, said that his martial house had the fastest cultivation of fortitude. He also said that ranks only affect the influence of the family, not its strength. But Luo Wei then wondered why Ling Xiao was in second place. The fact was that the 4 famous princes of the emperor were part of the Yunmeng martial house, and therefore no one could say anything to them because of their influence. Luo Wei thought this was completely absurd, as did Zai. But Zai was even more interested in whether he now had access to the treasury of Ling Xiao's house. Chu Xing confirmed his words, and then Zai advised him to take a holy level technique there. There were a total of 5 categories of skills, starting from the mundane level, ending with Sara, the holy suited Chu Xing, and was right in the middle. Therefore, Chu Xing was advised to choose a holy skill, since a talented person, but not strong in fighting spirit, needs precisely this category of skills. This is exactly what Zai meant, and also warned that it was the first time that Ling Xiao's family had made such an exception for Chu Xing, so others might react. Chu Xing was not worried about this case, but Zai understood that it would be difficult for Chu Xing to enter the fighting house. But Chu Xing asked Zai not to worry, because he would never disrespect the honor of Yang Yan, who accepted him. Luo Wei also said that she will always support Chu Xing no matter what happens. Suddenly, Zai noticed the Tianyan clan, but Chu Xing successfully listened to him and just wanted to eat already. They moved towards the city, and Zai began to urge his horse as he could not keep up with Chu Xing. A couple of minutes later, they had already arrived and stopped their horses right in front of the entrance to Chongxian City. Zai pointed to the shimmering spiritual stones that were on the gate, and according to legend, they were used to protect the city. Chu Xing came to the Imperial City for 2 reasons, the first of which was to find out the death and circumstances of the death of his family. And his second main task was to solve the problem with Liu Xiang and the Ninth Ice Palace. After all, just recently, he was unable to protect Liu Xiang and lost her, and now he faces an even more difficult path. But Chu Xing was still going to act according to his plan. While he was thinking, they were stopped by the guards. They asked to dismount and undergo an identity check. Zai took out his tattered badge, which looked like a fake, and said that it was from the 7 Ling Xiao. They said that any idiot could get this badge, so they asked him for a student badge, which he didn't have. But Chu Xing quickly decided to beat the situation and simply took out his main disciple token. They immediately became very kind and let them into the city while Zai wanted to kick their ass. Zai could not calm down, but Chu Xing decided to do him a favor and gave him the money so that he could buy back his token. Luo Wei was very happy that she visited the Imperial City, because before that, she had always lived in the village. Zai and Chu Xing were walking, and Zai pointed to some tall building to Chu Xing. It was a brothel for discrimination, where the best beauties of the Imperial City were. Zai was crazy about this house, and promised to take Chu Xing there, but for obvious reasons, he didn't want to go there. Suddenly, Luo Wei decided to join the conversation, and also wanted to go there, what they were talking about so passionately. But Chu Xing and Zai immediately felt ashamed, and Zai tried to get out of the situation and said that Luo Wei just heard. Zai suddenly pointed to the summoning arena, where people were going to watch the battles of warriors. This was a specially designated place for duels, where the winners were determined, for example, some dispute. There are often battles here, because someone comes to stand up for the girl, and someone is simple because he likes. But Luo Wei was more interested in the statue of some warrior. It was the strongest General Jin who built this battle arena. Luo Wei knew about him and was crazy, because he was famous not only for his martial arts, but also for his beauty. But Zai only wished him good luck, because he was always on the front line and rarely appeared in the city. But Luo Wei daydreamed a little and said that her idol is brother Chu Xing. But before she had time to finish speaking, some freak appeared on his tame lion, who swung at the horse with Luo Wei. But Chu Xing quickly reacted and was able to catch Luo Wei, who from such a height would clearly have suffered serious injuries if she had fallen. But the one who did such a lousy act just got angry and said that no one can stand in his way. But Chu Xing said that he is just a fool who does not know how to ride and blames others for it. But apparently that guy didn't like such self-confidence in Chu Xing's words, and his little animal rushed to attack. Chu Xing was able to easily stop her and the boy who was sitting on her with just one touch of his hand. He fell and hit himself hard, and in a fit of rage, ordered his comrades to surround Chu Xing. The idiots immediately obeyed the order and surrounded Chu Xing and Luo Wei, who was a little scared and pressed closer to Chu Xing. Zai was calming his horse at this time and only now realized that Chu Xing was not nearby, and there was some kind of commotion nearby. People had already gathered to watch some battle or humiliation and were laughing at Chu Xing, who dared to speak out like that. Chu Xing was told that it was Li Chenxiao too, the young master of the Ling Xiao family, which Chu Xing was basically heading to. One of his comrades did not understand the logic of Chu Xing, who was frightened by his master's riding movement and was now looking for a fight. Chu Xing did not see a master here, but only an ill-mannered person who needed to be taught a lesson. But Li Chenxiao only grinned, because he immediately realized that this self-confident man came to the imperial city for the first time. He immediately began to show his influence and asked Chu Xing if he knew who was in charge here. He was sure, because he didn't yet know who Chu Xing was, that he could kill him and no one would even say a word. Chu Xing invited him to try, and then Li Chen literally fell out of such an expression in his direction and began calling him names in rage. But there was no stopping him.
What
and
is
he,
that? Is there something on the
activating
wall?
his fighting spirit, attacked Chu Xing. But after the first blow, Chu Xing immediately struck back, which hit him right in the sternum. After that, he sent him flying a couple of tens of meters, and Luo
Fanny
Wei was
pack
shocked
with the
by
packet
Chu Xing's
pack,
talent.
duck
Li
'em,
Chen was
tape 'em.
furious and asked his comrades to help him because he could never have done it on his own. But suddenly some rather strong warrior appeared and asked to stop all the riots. They immediately began to complain to him that Chu Xing supposedly harmed Li Chen and he should be punished. He agreed with them because he could not tolerate an insult towards his family from any other person. But suddenly Luo Wei said that Chu Xing was also from Ling Xiao's martial house. But these fools definitely couldn't believe it. At this time, Tsai was trying to use
Oh, it's
force to
foggy,
move the
man.
people who
Come on
decided
with the
to look at this
BS.
whole circus. The man immediately saw the angry Tsai and immediately asked when he returned to the city. But Tsai said that when he arrived in the city, he immediately came across scoundrels who don't know how to behave in society. Li Chen began to make excuses that Chu Xing was to blame for everything. But Tsai said not to be rude towards him. He called him a newly arrived core disciple who would get him in trouble if he continued his circus. Today, Li Chen will forever remember this day, because for the first time he was publicly humiliated and ran into the wrong person. People had already started laughing at him because he constantly threatened everyone, almost got himself. But Zai also could not tolerate insults towards any member of the Ling Xiao martial house and began to be rude to ordinary people. Because the conflict had gone too far, the master asked Li Chen to apologize to Chu Xing. Li Chen didn't want to humiliate himself like that in front of a newcomer, but he simply had no choice, and he did everything. He asked to forget all this misunderstanding and invited Chu Xing for a cup of tea. But Zai didn't have time for tea because he still needed to register Chu Xing in Ling Xiao's database. Nervous and clearly dissatisfied, Li Chen apologized again and asked Chu Xing to be more lenient with him the next time they met. Also, the same man introduced himself as Xiao Huan, and he was also Yan Yang's disciple. He had his own spirit beast, which he was going to use to give his new comrades a ride. Luo Wei was a little scared, but Chu Xing calmed her down and said that these were just embodiments of his spiritual art. They all climbed onto this bird and flew to survey the imperial city, and Luo Wei even liked it. Xiao Huan began to talk about the structure of the imperial city, which was divided into three main districts: the outer one, in which they were, the inner one, and the imperial center. He also showed the gate through which you can enter the inner city. In the inner region lived 5 main families, or otherwise martial houses, as well as branches of the imperial family. There were strict rules. The next place was a golden building in the north called Fengtan Palace. Luo Wei wondered where the imperial district was because she had not seen it. Unfortunately, Xiao Huan could not show him, and so they simply went down to the square to the warriors, where Chu Xing realized that the competition here was tough. Here there were both average masters, with the 3rd and 4th stages of development, and strong ones with the 7th stage of development. But also here was his main enemy, or strange friend, Shui Qian, who apparently noticed him. She saw all her old acquaintances, but did not understand what kind of girl was still walking with Chu Xing. Suddenly, people began to gather near some flowers of Ling Xiao, which also interested our heroes. It was a shining carriage with 2 beautiful disciples of the Ling Xiao martial house, who were carried by a first-class monster stallion. Flowers were the name given to the beauties of the martial houses, and these two were on par with the four famous princes from the Yun Meng martial house. On the left was the Phoenix, who was the daughter of Master Ling Xiao by title of the main disciple, and on the right was the Ice Fairy, a very talented girl. Phoenix greeted Zai, who had recently returned to the city with Chu Xing, and the Ice Fairy was tense for some reason. But when she noticed Chu Xing, something suddenly began to play within her. Shui Qian was also here, and looked at them with arrogance and considered herself more beautiful than all of them. Suddenly the stallion stepped into some slimy liquid, and the carriage tilted a little, because of which Miss Shui fell straight onto Chu Xing, who was almost crushed. Madame Phoenix was very scared for Chu Xing, because she thought that her friend would be so furious. Xiao Huan and Zai were simply shocked, because they also wanted this. But Lo Wei crawled up to Chu Xing and asked if he was okay. Mrs. Jue was very embarrassed, and
That's a large blunt. Wait a minute, can I use a large blunt?
Jue asked him to be silent, but Chu Xing had already come to his senses and asked how long she was going to.
Yeah, my large blunt is ridiculous.
Chu Xing and his new friends had already approached Ling Xiao's martial house, where Chu Xing was already being disapprovingly discussed. Zai began to intercede for Chu Xing again, since he had an assignment, and asked what he was up to this time. Li Chen stood up, and simply with very great arrogance, as if he asked someone for help, said that for Chu Xing, the doors to the fighting house were closed. Zai was already furious and did not understand him, but he only replied that he was guarding the gate and would not allow garbage to enter inside. Then Zai had already lost his temper and didn't understand who Li Chen thought he was in this case. Suddenly, other members of the fighting house approached Zai and asked him to respectfully not interfere. Then Xiao Huan personally stood up for Chu Xing, because he was tired of the behavior of Li Chen, who had already broken the rules. But suddenly Evian appeared, pushed him away, and approached Chu Xing, and said that he would not accept him as a student. Zai immediately asked him to leave if he did not agree with Chu Xing, and not to create unnecessary problems. But Evian believed that it was because of Chu Xing that now the person who took the test for an inner disciple and did not succeed. So they took Chu Xing. He decided to restore justice and punish Chu Xing. He asked to be smarter than Chu Xing and give him the seal of the inner disciple.
That's like
Chu Xing refused. Then he asked not to blame him for what would happen now, and at the same
40%
moment, he
versus
attacked Chu Xing with double swords, which were stopped by Chu Xing's sword. The sounds of fighting were heard, which were accompanied by strong blows of sword fighting. But suddenly Tsai appeared, tired of all this, and he sent Eleven flying from behind. He could not tolerate such an attitude towards inner disciples, and thought that Yelevan had already thought of dealing with Chu Xing. But suddenly Elder Xiao appeared, who did not understand who was causing trouble here. Xiao was on Yelevan's side, since he was his student, and could not understand why Zai stood up for a stranger. Zai said that he brought Chu Xing here on the orders of Master Yang Yang, and Evian tried to interfere, but suddenly, Lo Wei intervened in the adult conversation, asking Chu Xing to feed him, because she was very hungry. The elder decided to skip this point and asked again where and how Chu Xing arrived here. But most of all, he wanted to know how Chu Xing, who has the third level of collecting souls, and his fighting spirit is equal to the first level, and he has already become a core disciple. Now he realized that all the rumors he had heard about Chu Xing were true. The other disciples also heard this, and couldn't believe how such a weakling could immediately become an inner disciple. Xiao Huan decided to try to stop the escalating conflict, because Chu Xing was clearly not going to give in to the elder who had laid a grudge on him. But Chu Xing thought Elder Xiao's arguments were too stupid, because he was able to injure Elder Gu, and the other three martial houses were interested in him. Moreover, Zai decided that if the elder knew this, then there was no point in asking anything from Chu Xing, and asked him to let them into the house already. But Elder Xiao did not deviate from his rules, and said that Chu Xing needed to pass the test for internal disciples. Zai did not agree with him, because the test was supposed to begin only in a year, and the elder was already creating problems for Chu Xing. But the elder decided to change the test altogether, in which all students could take part, who had to survive in the foggy forest for 7 days. Xiao promised that if Chu Xing passed the test, he would no longer interfere with him. But he was sure that with such cultivation, Chu Xing would not survive. Chu Xing hasn't answered anything yet, because he couldn't believe that he was again being put lower for his level, and not for his talent. Evian and her comrades began to laugh at Chu Xing, who, in their opinion, was not worthy to take part at all. But at that moment, Xiao Huan came along with Elder Tai, who was one of the main He possessed some kind of electrical magic and did not understand how his own students could cause disturbances in the fighting house. But Xiao decided to take the initiative and said that these external affairs did not concern him. But Elder Tai didn't care about any external affairs, because this was the territory of the Ling Xiao family. He also asked to see Chu Xing's inner disciple tablet as a test, and Elder Xiao became furious at that very moment, because he didn't understand how a person could immediately become an inner disciple without testing. Elder Tai thought about it, because they had never broken their own family rules, but he also believed that it was impossible to create new rules without breaking the old ones. He decided to make an exception for Chu Xing and not persecute him because of the tablet. But Chu Xing still had to pass the test to prove that he was worthy of the tablet. Chu Xing was glad that the chief elder supported him and was willing to complete the test. And also, in case of any incidents on the part of ill wishers, he asked Elder Tai to become a witness. And he also addressed the disciples with the words that if someone breaks his word, he will not restrain himself. But Yelavan and Elder Xiao were for the same thing, and prepared an assassination attempt on the test. Before the test, they all ate plenty of delicious dishes, including luo wei. Sai said that Chu Xing was in vain to make a hasty promise, because these people were treacherous and were clearly up to something. Chu Xing asked him not to try to scare him, because he understood perfectly well. But Zai then wondered why he agreed in this case. Chu Xing said that they don't have much time.
Let's get
He doesn't know when Yang Yan
Get this
will
reading
return,
done.
so completing the test is the only way. Chu Xing also
I
said
need
that
that
his
farming,
main concern
son.
right now is Luo Wei's
Give me
safety.
that.
Therefore, Chu Xing gave the letter and asked Sai to take her to Shun Feng, who was supposed to look after her. But in fact, Chu Xing again met with the head of the Tan clan and said that he had changed his mind about their clan if they protected someone for him. The next day, everyone had already gathered on the field where the test was supposed to begin. Elder Xiao said that the test lasts 7 days in the misty forest. After the time has elapsed, the student will be able to pass the test. He also asked those who wished to take part to step forward. Chu Xing was already the first to go without elections, and the disciples thought that with his cultivation he would not live even a day.
Kitty, get out my lap. I'm gaming.
His plan to eliminate him. Elder Xiao took out a special bracelet that teleports the student to any place in the misty forest. Also, if the student wants to give up, then he simply must remove the bracelet. And if he loses it or breaks it, then he will have to wait for the rescue team at the end of the test. The elder, before giving him the ring, immediately offered to surrender if his life was dear to him. But Chu Xing, only with some aggression, snatched the ring from him and put it on without hesitation. People began to enter the portal, one by one, so that it would send them to any place thanks to the ring. But Evian, like the last coward, decided to scare Chu Xing with possible danger. For such a pretty girl, Luo Wei, who came to support Chu Xing. He also said that if Chu Xing left now, then no one would be able to take care of her. But Chu Xing expected such a turn of events, and said that he already had everything in this regard. But still, in his heart, he was a little worried about her, because he didn't know if everyone he asked...
All right, let's get some sleep. And on that note, while I'm getting me some sleep, getting off Skrizine. It's been fun. Love, peace, chicken grease. I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one. Holla.
And decided to set a trap for him. Then Evian and his friends appeared in all their glory and without disguise. He approached Chu Xing and called him an arrogant brat